now, not 5 years from now.
Yeah, so this is immediate needs, so what they said that we should have right now in 2019 is what the needs analysis calls out.
Sorry, and that's what we're looking at with the long-range planner?
That's what, yeah, so that would be the position, I guess, that, so we're, that would be total cost estimated of $96,000 a year between salary and benefits.
Are there any position requests that weren't identified in the immediate needs?
Sort of. There are some reclassifications that were requested. I think, so Ruth, maybe you can explain your proposal to, instead of adding, so I think the needs analysis called out the need for an assistant council administrator in addition to the staff that you already have, right?
Yeah, so for a total of 4.5 in my office instead of 3.5. Obviously, right now we don't have the space for that very easily. But so Renee and Chris and I have been working on this, and with Bryony leaving, which we estimate to be December, Judd's leaving end of October, that we could reclassify that position to the assistant administrator position and maybe beef up the office assistant part-time position to 29 hours to where it's still part-time instead of 20 hours per week. Maybe a small reclassification there too for additional responsibilities, but I think it would be in the long run, I believe it is manageable, and it would, right now our department is extremely vulnerable. The only institutional knowledge you're going to have after mid-March, short of hiring internally, is a part-time office assistant who started in January of this year. That's it, other than our written procedures. So,
so there's two figures here.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So this first figure, I believe, is for the total assistant administrator position. And then this figure down here it would be the difference between the office coordinator and the assistant administrator. So if we put the office coordinator position on hold and brought on the assistant administrator instead, I think this would be the difference, right?
Yeah.
So that would cost $51,229 as difference, but if you just added the position as the needs analysis specifies, then it would be this value here.
Well, we can't really add right now because we don't have the space.
Well, that's true also.
So I mean, we can't do it. It's just not a possibility at this point.
We're all out of closets.
Yeah.
We could put somebody in the bathroom, I guess. So,
that is a big bathroom.
I want to just add too, though, what we're trying to do, the basis for having this position is so that the council administrator is not supervising 12 department heads plus 2 office staff. So that would be cut in half, so that would be a supervisory position to make the administrator's position more sane and ability to focus on more visionary strategic planning kinds of things.
all right. So that's that position. Then there's some budget that's been calculated for the training overlap. And then also in the needs assessment and also requested is the HR assistant. So Renee's the only HR staff that we have, which has been identified as being way overburdened for one person, this number of employees. And let's see here.
If I can just speak to the sheriff's really quick.
Okay.
The part-time social media and PR person, Steve.
Can you get your mic?
Steve just mentioned that he wanted to look at that as a possibility. In the needs analysis, it called for 2 more patrol deputies and the sergeant, so that's where they came in. And then any full-time position is just at the highest amount of health insurance benefits, so that's the high deductible family in this calculation.
So those are the 4 from the sheriff's office. And then we have similar request and also from the jail and also it's a component of the needs assessment. Are 2 more corrections deputies plus a sergeant. And this is one where I would emphasize that we're in a situation that I don't think is very safe, where we have don't have enough corrections deputies in the jail, and there's oftentimes only one corrections deputy on duty at a time.
And that's dangerous,
Yeah.
so.
So that was called out also in the needs assessment, and it's really, I think, if I were to prioritize any of these requests, I would probably prioritize at least these two corrections deputy requests, because that's a pretty dangerous situation.
Question.
Yeah.
When I've talked to the sheriff before, he said that the prisoners that they're getting from outside the county, from the state, I think, the state gives them so much money for that. Where's that money going? Is that going into their operations budget or what?
Well, it goes to the general fund, and so it offsets it does offset the cost of the jail. And so the total that we get is about $150,000 a year for state inmates. And so that's obviously nowhere near the total cost of running a jail, but it helps.
Are those state inmates, I don't know how to say this diplomatically, but are they more dangerous to the jail keepers than the local, or do we know?
Not necessarily.
Not
Yeah, Shan has the opportunity to try to pick which ones he gets.
Just overflow.
And he indicated to me that he never really gets the ones he picks anyway, so it's somewhat random who they assign. We have 4, basically, that we're budgeting for state inmates, which represents that about $150,000 between 2 different revenue lines. So,
It's my impression that most of the headache kind of comes during the intake process and recently after. And so by the time these state guys are getting transported, they're just like going with the flow. But that's just anecdotal.
Are we maxed out at 4?
no, but it depends on how many other cells are occupied. So, I think right now we actually have a pretty high local population, which does kind of max us out, but it really kind of depends. Obviously, if we take a state inmate, we got to maintain enough beds for what would happen locally. I don't think 4 is our max, but again, it kind of depends on the local occupation.
Is the number of corrections deputies limiting that in any way?
I don't think so. Maybe, but not that I'm aware of.
So we wouldn't necessarily see an increase to that 150 if we approved more corrections deputies?
No. We
No,
would
but
just be
I-
improving the safety of the officers on duty, so I think,
And I don't really want to look at holding inmates as a revenue generator. It's not really something I'm into.
Feels like that. Prison for profit.
I do. I'll just say it.
well, we're doing.
We get the space
You
that
know,
we're paying
we're-
for.
We don't have that much space actually, and so, I don't know, like I said, maybe we could have 1 or 2 more. It depends on the occupancy of the jail.
Well, I'm fine with 4, but
Anyway, that's
That wouldn't
what.
matter.
Yeah, I see the correction officers for the jail as pretty crucial positions that should be filled.
so is dispatch fully staffed at this point? 'Cause there for a while that was an
They
issue.
have, they're fully funded. We have all the positions that they're allowing. They're down 2 staff right now.
Oh, okay.
But they're advertised.
I did notice in the needs assessment that it called out for 1 more dispatch, but that wasn't requested. So, we do have 8 plus the supervisor right now, which is, I think, pretty good. They just need to get people to, certified and to stay with the job.
Yeah, and 5 of those dispatchers are new within the last 6 months, I'd say.
So, anyway, I don't know that the sergeant is strictly necessary, but I assume that it's, to maintain the supervisory relationship ratio?
Shannon mentioned that the sergeant position would allow him to have a supervisor on a 24-hour schedule. So one during the day and one at night.
Then in the attorney's office, there's a couple different requests, and I believe it's a request more for, again, some reclassifications rather than new positions. So what's being proposed is that one of the paralegals potentially gets replaced with a second deputy attorney. And then the existing deputy attorney position would be redefined, reclassified as chief deputy attorney. So not really adding positions, but reclassifying them, which comes with a cost. It looks like to reclassify the paralegal to deputy attorney is looking like about a $26,000 cost, and the reclassification from deputy attorney to chief deputy attorney, about a $10,000 cost.
So what, our paralegals can move, or they have the training to do that?
No, and so
Is that
it
what
is
they do?
dependent upon, so there's a possibility one of the paralegals may get a different job. And if that's the
Within
case.
the county.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, then what Christina's proposing is that if that person vacates the paralegal position, that you reclassify that position and hire an attorney.
When will we know that?
By the end of the year, we hope.
It's
Well, we'd have to approve that first, right?
well, you'd want, obviously, you can't do anything in budget for it.
So the same amount of people, you just be hiring someone with more skills?
Yeah, a second deputy attorney. I mean, to Christina's credit, she created the deputy attorney she has now by pulling that budget out of the contract deputy line, which, I have to say, increased like 300 or 400% in a few years when Andrew had it. It went from like 50,000 a year up to over like 300,000 a year in a very short period of time. And so it's not that budget has never it's not historically been that high. But anyway, Christina said, well, I will cover the civil work that we used to farm out, and the new deputy attorney will deal with prosecution, and we'll be able to do that. Have two attorneys in the office and keep the same budget, and she's maintained that. She actually is accomplishing that.
So there would really be 3 attorneys in the office?
There would be 3 if this were.
One would be civil and 2 would be
I don't know what the.
Christina.
Did she say it would be civil or criminal?
She didn't mention.
I'm not sure.
I think it might be kind of a go-between.
Do both.
Learn a little bit on both.
I don't know if that's how it works, but.
Maybe not. They do have to kind of specialize in one way or another.
Christina,
More
what
civil,
is
so
it?
it's more farming out civil.
That's the impression I got.
What?
Mhm.
Excuse
I
me?
think it's more civil, so that we don't farm out as much civil. Sometimes we have to farm it out because of conflict or whatever, but
Conflict of interest.
we used to farm out every bit of civil almost.
Yeah, and it was very expensive.
Yeah.
Like $350 an hour. So, anyway, that covers that. Is there anything in the needs assessment immediately for the attorney's office, or is this a request that's kind of outside that?
That's outside of the needs assessment, and there was nothing.
And then Steve Swift has put in a request for.
The maintenance worker was within the needs assessment for 2020. That additional assistant director job wasn't until 2024, but Steve has asked for it this year.
So he's got one assistant manager director, and he's asking for a second, right? And he's saying that this was in the 2024 side of the needs analysis, not the immediate. So this request is outside of the current needs analysis.
But
I understood it to be a reclassification of the administrative assistant position.
It
Yeah.
is.
Or not a reclassification rather than a
Okay.
position?
So I think this would actually be a different number, Renee, because if what he's proposing is to move his admin assistant.
That's where I grabbed that 77 is his admin assistant's cost right now.
So that's all it would cost to go up to the,
Yeah, it's just a change in salary.
so going from a grade 4 to a grade 7
7.
is only 6,200?
Yeah, it's only about $2.50.
All right. Well,
It's more of a business development position where they're the ones going out and getting the business,
yeah,
Yeah.
and taking care of the customers.
okay. Well, I mean, to that end, it almost would qualify for TRT, promotional TRTs to a degree if they were actually going out advertising the arena and reeling in.
Well, they have been
outside.
advertising. the
Yeah, they
arena.
do that, especially for like overnight horse days and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
although the budget has been, like Steve said, well, we spent $100 on an ad in this magazine and $100 on an ad in that other magazine. It's like, well,
It was a $1,000 advertising budget.
yeah, and so it was less than 1,000, and so we did pawn that over. But if somebody is actually being employed to do any kind of arena promotion, it's possible that that fraction of their salary and benefits could be paid by the travel council's promotional budget. So that's something to keep in mind.
And I just got one more to add. Matt Sinisteros let me know that it is in the needs assessment for a full-time IT tech right away. And so that's not on the spreadsheet.
I thought that was in 2024.
He's saying
But-
I asked specifically, he said it's immediate. He's looking at entry level, full-time.
I think in the needs analysis it said dash GIS, so I didn't do that because we employed our GIS guy. But I don't disagree that.
He's willing to start that person part-time.
All right, so
So that's another, I don't know what the costs are.
Oh, this is stressful.
isn't this fun?
Oh,
So-
yeah. I get to do this all the time, you like that.
So do we have a total for,
Let me actually redo some of this total, because this is, okay, so we're gonna go with,
what if we
That.
didn't put that one in,
what's this one?
Zacharias?
Well, do you wanna, why don't you
Let's-
tell me
let's-
which ones
let's
you
see.
want to put into the total?
Let's see
Okay.
if we funded every one of them, what would that cost? Let's-
All right,
let's
let me
look at
do that, and then we'll
first.
just maybe delete
Then we can
them
start going.
out. All right, hold on, let me redo this,
We don't need a
Not
plan.
that I could ever
Just get
do
that
that.
planner out of here.
Well, to be
Kind of-
fair, he was willing to forego that
Yeah.
this year because he knows the budget's tight.
But I'd like to know,
Yep.
I think that it's nice to have a beginning. If the best, somehow
Yeah.
our money doubled.
$929,000-ish.
Nice.
Thanks.
That's a little better.
Per year.
So this IT position, I'm assuming
Oh,
it's
that's not
the
including the
GIS
IT.
manager? Because this assessment says that position, the position of GIS manager should be funded as soon as possible. But the IT department by 2024 should expand its existing staffing to add a part-time IT tech position. But the GIS manager should be funded immediately, is what it says.
Well, we
did get a
hired that guy.
GIS staffer,
Oh, good.
full-time.
Sweet.
We met 'em. So,
Anyway, so, which do you want me to start pulling out?
well, Zacharias said he could wait for that.
Pull out the two
Such a team
sergeants.
player.
Huh?
I think I'd like to pull out the two sergeants. Just Sometimes you gotta supervise more people than you're supposed to. Take one for the team, I guess.
The corrections?
Yeah, well, there
No, not
was
the
one
corrections.
requested in corrections and sheriff.
So that
One each.
is J and M.
So you're saying take out not the corrections, not the ones for the jail, but the ones for supervising, right? Is that what you were saying?
Right, both sheriff and jail asked for 3, 2 deputies, and in each department, they wanted like 2 corrections and then a sergeant. Same with sheriff, 2 sheriffs and a sergeant. I'm saying, initially at least, let's talk about taking the sergeants out in both places.
Would that hurt the safety, and would that leave enough people in the jail?
No,
Well, I
'cause-
think what it would do is, I'm not sure how they're doing the supervisory thing right now, but it would have to continue on, whatever they're doing right now.
But it would still be
It's
adding.
still adding
positions.
staff.
Getting people.
So, I mean, they would have more people on duty, but the same number, or the same resources for supervision with more people.
Right.
So who's ever supervising right now is going to have an even more
We have to.
significant role. And I think that, Shan's pretty tough and so is Darryl, but at some point, everybody hits the breaking point.
What about doing it, leave the sergeants in and take the deputies out, so you have 1-on-1?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to talk with the sheriff about that. I don't know.
Or maybe what we decide is how much we're willing to fund, and he gets to decide which is the most important. Because, he probably knows, we don't, he can decide, well, okay, I have this much money, and I can, so this will allow me to hire this many people, and he gets to choose which is the most important. That's how I would look at it.
All right,
Makes more
so
sense.
we're down to about 640,000
And that's taking out the 2.
sergeants plus the planner.
What does that leave those 2 entities, if we take out the sergeants? In terms of,
It's about 168,000 each for 2 corrections and 2
Yeah.
patrols. So, yeah, sum total it'd be, about 336,000 for those 4 positions.
yeah, I like Mary's idea.
Just,
Say, this is the pot of gold you have,
and you decide
and
how
figure
you're
it out.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Because, really, I hate it, you hate it when places, they know what they need.
All right, so what do we think then about the attorney's request to
Talk about this
reclassify?
I think you ought to do it, because I think in the long run, you can save money.
Anybody disagree with that?
Does that mean
Wait,
we're
what
not
did
gonna
you
get
say?
any cases going outside
Uh,
our current personnel?
Considerably fewer, I would say. I mean, there's a few legal issues that will probably still require going out. If there's any kind of conflict within the attorney's office. And sometimes, there'll be investigations that occur where you wouldn't want your local attorney's office doing the investigation, and so sometimes we have to contract with, or make arrangements with attorneys' offices in other counties.
But by doing this for the attorney's office, are we going to avoid what was going on
Well,
under the last?
it's a good question. I guess the question would be, because their contract deputy line item is about 50 to 60,000, if I recall. I could look up exactly. The question is, if we do this reclassification, can we reduce
Yeah.
in any way? I'll show you what it is.
Because it doesn't, my way of thinking, if we go ahead and plus up the attorney's office, but we're still stuck with the same amount
Yeah.
going outside, why are we doing it for?
Right, if we can shave 10 grand off that line item. then-
So 50,000 right now is budgeted, budget request for 50,000, going to deputy legal. Hey, there he is.
There he is,
Yeah.
good, you can help us with talking about you.
Sure, what's up?
Did you, did you hear us talk about you?
No, you're fine, sit down. Ruth just sent me a text, so I know.
Your budget's flying out the window, you better get in here.
We're, I'll let Chris tell you.
Okay.
We want to finish this line of thought we were talking.
Well, all right, so what we were discussing in terms of the reclassification is the question of whether or not, if we do the reclassification, bring in another attorney, if we can reduce this 50,000. And, I can't answer that question necessarily without Christina. Maybe somebody can send her a text.
Or even if she called on the phone,
But, I think that, and it's really kind of up to the council what they budget.
Yeah.
And so you could just say, well, we'll do it, but we're going to reduce that line item, and that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, like, at this point in the game and trying to get something together for this afternoon, like 10 grand isn't, going back into the attorney's budget now and that kind of stuff, it's like.
I mean, it is a detail-oriented thing that would probably be something that when you get to December and you say, well, we've juggled things around as best we can, and the actual amount that we're going to approve, is less than what we noticed, which is hopefully the case. But, yeah, I think that's probably something at this point that maybe we would address later. I have to, or the Budget Advisory Board and I have to present the council the tentative budget by November 1st. Then it's kind of up to the council to make their changes separate from the Budget Advisory Board and the Budget Officer. Then that's what whatever the results of that will be what we put up for public hearing December 3rd. And then December, I think, 18th or whatever the date is, the second meeting in December will be the approval,
So
17th.
for this point of the discussion, I'm okay with reclassifying those
Okay.
positions. I think in the long run, it's got the potential to save us money.
All right, Steve, so where we're at right now with the jail and patrol, we've got the 6 position requests. I think the council was interested in funding 4 of them.
Okay.
And so which 4?
Well, my two main biggest priorities is I want to make sure that we get the jail 2 guys a shift. That's huge to me right now. I think that was one of our biggest liabilities that came out of the needs assessment. The other 2, we can establish them. Actually, 3 of them could have the potential to go to the jail. The other thing is I don't know if all of you heard, but Homeland Security dropped a contract on my desk last week that says we are going to have to provide no less than a 5-minute response and 730 hours a year to meet the EAS requirements.
What's
For
the
the
area?
airport. For the
The
airport.
Essential Air Service.
Oh, that, same old EAS.
Yeah, that EAS.
Okay.
So I've met with Homeland Security because our old contract was 15 minutes, which we could respond from here, and I didn't have to have somebody there. I asked them what the change was. I have not heard back from them, but it's what promoted that change.
I
So,
might have an idea. We are on track to do 20,000 employments this year.
right, and I think, and kind of the conversations that Daryl's had with Judd and some of the other conversations is I think things are going to stay the same maybe this year, but next year we're looking at that, maybe a change of planes, and that's going to bump that up. And maybe they're just jumping the game a little bit. But right now, I cannot meet the requirements of that contract with the staffing that we have.
5-minute response in how many hours?
700, I believe it was 730. It was over 700 hours of response. So, and to fill that, we're basically going to have 3 people out there full time. And I think we maybe look at some options of how we fill those positions. I mean, because I know I talked about maybe trying to do a reserve thing. Maybe we look at some, I think there's maybe some creative ways we can look at and maybe save a little bit of money. But right now, the main thing is I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Because that one could hurt us if we don't get it taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, we are heading in to considerably more expense out at the airport, law enforcement related. And once we get to the point where we shift to the larger jets, then it really takes a hyper jump.
Right.
And we're talking, about three law enforcement positions out there, plus building the facilities for them to,
Right. And I think that was,
operate.
it's my understanding that it's up to the airport to actually provide them with office space and those kind of things. But that was another thing, the needs assessment identified that as a potential risk for us as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, that, Judge says that's not gonna happen next year, but, it's the plan to get the bigger.
Well, like I say,
Yes.
my concern is I have some real concerns about signing that contract on something as right now I can't fulfill it.
Yeah.
And what kind of liability does that put us at?
Yeah, and I mean, part of the issue too, and I think that, creating a position that's lower key and isn't time and a half, to fill
Right.
that role would
Well, and
be
that's
better
it.
than having your existing patrol getting paid time and a half to go out
Right, and
there.
as it stands right now, we do random, the guys go out randomly, and they're paid at a time and a half rate to go out there. So I think even if we assign people out there, we're still gonna be, we'll pay them at a straight rate, even if we do full-time deputies, which, that's a bonus to me, because, that gives me some more staff, which I can always use, but I think we need to sit down and have a pretty serious discussion about that.
Did these requests that came forward, did they cover addressing those needs? I mean, not the 3 people full-time, but
No, the positions that are there, if it's my understanding, Chris, you can tell me if I'm wrong, those are all full-time positions.
Yeah. So
But
I guess
would
the
that get us
question
away
is,
from the
could,
time and a half?
could,
It
I don't
would
know.
some, yes, it would.
So, I mean, how are you right now on recruitment?
do you have those position titles? Sorry, I just lost which was which. There we go.
Yeah, that helps, thank you.
Right now, if things go right for the first time, and since I've been sheriff, we're almost to reach capacity at the patrol level, which thank you guys for that, because the increases last year were saved my bacon. They were huge. We're actually getting some staff back. We're still some short in the jail. We're still a couple short in dispatch, but we're actually finally getting some applicants and things are kind of moving there, so.
Steve, if we put one more, either sergeant or deputy, rather than doing 4, did 5, would that take care of the current need for one person out of the airport?
Well, you're gonna have to have more than one.
Currently?
Yeah, right now, it's just hit and miss. We don't even assign them one
No, I
full-time.
understand that,
Okay.
but what I'm trying to avoid is having to do the, time and a half
Right.
of overtime, because eventually that'll amortize itself, if you have a
Right, and I think,
full-time person on there.
I think if we could get the 2 positions out there probably right now, because my worry is covering vacations and stuff, so if one guy's gone,
Yeah,
then you're back into the time and a half trying to
yeah.
cover days off. And granted, in law enforcement, you're always gonna have some. I mean, just the nature of the beast, somebody's gonna get something 10 minutes before
Yeah.
end of shift, but I think we can mitigate a lot of that with probably 2 positions right now.
And so when is that Homeland Security contract going to?
We've got it, it's my understanding is we have to have it signed, they'd like it signed by the 18th of November.
Gosh.
Yeah, so they're kind of putting us under the gun here a little bit. But like I say, I'm kind of hoping that maybe he'll come back to me with some answers that we're still under the 15-minute rule, which will buy us some time for another year.
Yeah.
But I'm still waiting for some, if you read that contract, they are very, very insistent that anything less than 5 minutes is unacceptable. And you do mean, they laid out big bold letters in a couple of spots.
So that pretty much means somebody's gotta be there.
Yeah, we've got to keep
Yeah,
somebody
you
there.
could be there.
So what we've got plugged in, Steve, right now is 2 corrections and 2 patrol.
Okay.
That good enough for
That,
now?
I would like to have a second sergeant in the jail, but right now, I understand what the situation they are. The two corrections would give me dual shifting, which is huge, and yeah, I think that would. The other position that I want you guys to kind of consider and maybe help me with is I've had some help this year doing my PIO and social media stuff. I'd like to consider a part-time position there.
What's
For Samantha.
PIO?
What's that?
Public Information Officer.
PIO, Public Information Officer.
Oh, okay.
Samantha, I don't know, I think most of you have dealt with Samantha. She has been a godsend. And she stepped in, she's did a bunch with mosquito abatement, she's tried to help everywhere she can. That's a part, I think if we budgeted $40,000 a year for that, would be huge. And I just kind of want to lay that out there too when we're talking, now that we're talking about positions, because it's such a relief knowing that she calls, it's taken care of.
She was primary for the Cinema Court fire, if I
Yes,
recall.
yeah, she was primary for the Cinema Court fire. and-
She made,
So
Oh, Bonsack? So that's
Yeah.
Samantha?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did
think
add that.
there's
Oh, sorry, go
a
ahead.
lot of value in creating the narrative in-house. I think if we can push out press releases and
Right.
blurbs
And
and
she's-
tweets, that people just pick it up and repost that.
Well, the thing about it is she's went in and rewrote my whole social media policy. She's established guidelines, and most of it, I mean, we've paid her, I think, $1,000, but she's donated. And, you know, I mean, she spends countless hours, she answers my phone. I can call her at 3 o'clock in the morning and have her on a scene with me if I need her. And I just would really like to throw
So,
that out
yeah,
there.
Renee calculated that 1,040 hours, which is kind of a standard part-time position at $18.59.
And I grabbed the grade from the part-time social media in the travel council right now. That's where the grade 6 came from.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's, yeah.
Could it be a county-wide
Yeah,
position?
that's,
I think-
Because
yeah, I
like you
think
say, she helped with mosquito abatement,
I would have to
fire.
I'd have to clarify that with her, but yeah, I mean, she's one of them, she's never turned down a phone call to help anybody.
she's really been, yeah, she continues to be really involved with fire mitigation.
Right. Well, and just to give you guys an example, which I think most of you know, and I hadn't, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Facebook scares me to death.
I deleted my account,
And,
Steve,
but
so.
she goes, well, I wanna try a couple of things, you know, we need to do, she goes, let's do an April Fool's post. So I don't know if you guys seen it on the rock slide on 128 last year when it shut it down. Well, it said headlines, arrest made, Wile E. Coyote arrested. Or, you know, like birdseed was found at the bottom. 400,000 hits on that. I mean, it was just, but anyways,
Wow.
it's just, it's such a positive impact for us that I felt like it needed to be recorded.
So I think that we should consider putting 5th in anticipation of not being able to have a 15-minute thing. Because we're going to be scrambling if that happens.
Well, it is happening.
Well, I know, but I mean, if the Homeland Security doesn't allow Steve to go one more year with 15-minute thing, then November 18th, you know, he's going to be under the gun again.
so another one of these sergeant ones,
I
or?
would.
Well,
Well, I don't think it needs to be a sergeant, so to speak, because that's going to be an administrative role. I mean, they do both,
Well,
but I
whatever
think
you
just.
need, I think what we anticipated is saying, here's a block of funds. You know,
Right.
do what you need to do with it.
Right. Yeah, I think that would, even just as a straight patrolman, I think it would work.
so what are we talking, like a third then? Or will 2 additional be enough?
Well, the third, I hate to turn down staffing because I can always use it. But I understand this year. I think 2 would be a good start. That would get us over the hump, and then we can kind of gauge it. If we need the third, we could have the third.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think, yeah,
We
I
need
mean,
that now,
at this point, I
Yeah.
would try to just see what we can do with these
Yeah.
2 patrol.
And what it would do is I would dedicate those 2 patrol to the airport. And, you know, and then we'll work on call volume stuff as we go.
So
When you
those-
talked about getting creative and reserve, or what were some of those options?
Well, we've talked about it over the years, trying to start a reserve program. You know, so we could bring somebody in and bring guys in at a flat rate of, say, $25 an hour. And they come in and help, that's where we can maybe help use to cover special events. We can help them, maybe help cover vacation shifts or some of those kind of things. But the problem that I really want to do it because I think there's some people that would do it. Maybe this is where even we could keep, where I envision it maybe being a success is some of these guys that are retiring. They want to keep their certifications up after they've been out of the system for a year. and maybe come back and do it, but the problem, you know, and sometimes like up north, they have a lot of guys that work for an agency and do another, but our guys down here are so taxed that I just don't think we'd see a lot of success that way. But I think where we'd probably get it would be if we could keep some of our retired guys in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, for the most part, unless there's something happens, it's not a very exciting job.
No, it's not. Well, and the thing about it is with the airport too, though, is like I say, I gotta make sure I guarantee that. You know, I don't want the county getting dinged when they come out and say, look, your guy's not there, you're not meeting the requirements of the EAS. I don't wanna compromise that at all.
And these guys can't wear two hats. I mean, they're not.
They can.
They could be the fire out there also.
I don't know if
probably
you can
not
do that,
that.
because the
Yeah.
problem that you have is if you have a fire call, you've now compromised the security of the airport for the fire.
Yeah.
So you really can't.
I don't think we can
What
do
about
that.
accidents, vehicle accidents?
What about janitors?
Yeah.
So, I
Have the highest paid janitors out
You know,
there.
they would handle anything that a category 1 officer would handle on that premises. So if you go to Salt Lake International, yeah, those are the guys that handle the traffic accidents out there. Anything involved with that airport, yeah.
No, what are, saying, traffic access on the 911?
They could if it's an emergency.
Or-
Depends on,
Or 70, or,
well, as long as they don't go more than 5 minutes away.
yeah, you can't be more than 5 minutes away. But
And
if
then they'd
they're,
have to leave the
but-
accident.
but what you're thinking about though is if they're 2 hours in between flights, yeah, then that person can go out and do it because they, or whatever, then they
they'll
can
be
come back.
before the next flight.
Yeah, and as long as they're back to meet the requirements of the EAS before the next flight.
There's
I mean,
that.
there's some flexibility there.
I mean, there is the 5-minute response issue that ties them to have to stay pretty dang close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Oh.
And
Big ball of wax.
Oh,
We're gonna allow more.
I about stroked out when I seen that contract hit my desk last week.
Yeah.
I went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So,
All right, well, I think we might
anything
have a
else?
plan.
I guess the other question that we had, Steve, while you're here is what your capital equipment needs are.
okay, that was a question I had for you because we have the $30,000 in computer upgrades. We also have, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, we're gonna have, that was one of the questions I was gonna ask is to outfit the 2 new vehicles, do you want that under capital equipment or do you want it under 800 under inventory? Because that's gonna be, I think it was 57 or
How much is it per vehicle, do you know?
I'd have to break it down. I just have the total lookings. I'm not sure what it is per vehicle. It's gonna be about 20 grand per vehicle, I think. By the time we put the cages, 25.
Probably capital.
Okay. And then the other probably without, like I say, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. A couple of our big purchases is gonna be, we're looking at making the radio change between the dual bands. That's gonna be a big target item. But instead of having to come up with the $500,000 or whatever right up, we're looking at a leasing program on it, which I think is going to be way better. So that'll be a huge.
Yeah, so that's something we discussed earlier.
Okay.
So we'll have to discuss that. We already kind of pulled the dispatch and radio stuff
Right.
out of the
Right.
conversation
That's gonna
for
be going
now until we can figure out what we're going to do.
Right, but just remember though, that radio, even the radios on that piece is gonna be different than the dispatch piece, because the radios are what we're outfitting the guys with, and we're dispatching something, so. But that's gonna be the big change we need to make, to where we have the dual bands,
All right.
on the 800 and the VHF.
How long are those radios gonna be good for before technology moves?
Well, that's the nice thing about the lease is they're gonna be good for at least the 3 to 5 years. And so at that point, that'll get us through the lease, and then we'll have to maybe look at another lease as technology changes, which is perfect in my opinion, because we're keeping everybody in up-to-date equipment. Yeah, by having them leased, and then we don't, like I say, we just don't get hit with that $500,000 or whatever it is bill.
Yeah, because it just doesn't make any sense to buy this stuff, and then in 3 to 5 years, it's obsolete, so it goes in a storeroom
Right,
somewhere.
well, right, and then the other thing, just so you guys are aware of too, is I'm moving all the law enforcement people and doing the upgrades that are essential to keep the law enforcement piece moving, like search and rescue and that. We're not moving them over to the dual bands, we're keeping them on BHF, to try to save some money and stuff that way. So,
All right.
like I say, I apologize, because
Well, I mean, that's the weird thing about if you're considering property tax increase, you
Right.
have to
Okay.
know where you're at early.
Right, exactly.
So, you see that I kind of had to plug in a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Just as placeholders. I mean, I realize that we still have to go over your budget,
Right,
but, your budget's large enough that we can't just,
right. And you said-
figure out what our bottom line is.
A lot of that, I think I got them caught up. Did you see the new numbers that I plugged in?
Yeah.
Okay. But, yeah, no, it's
All right.
right new, because I know things are tight, so.
So, back then to position requests, is there any, other requests that we want to pull from?
Matt's here to talk.
You just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
something.
I just wanted to clarify, the needs
Can you
assessment
come up
as
to
it
the
was
mic?
written,
Come up to the mic.
the needs assessment as it was written, says that I should have 2 staff now.
So can I sneak back to my meeting? You guys
Yeah.
want to answer me?
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah,
thanks, Steve.
The money,
Sorry about that, yeah.
money, money, money,
Grants?
money.
Hey, put it on Matt's tab.
Yeah, just put it on my tab. But it says that I'm supposed to have 2 staff now, and that was what it was at the end of last year. And then right at the very end there, after budget was already approved and otherwise, then we lost Vonna over in the recorder's office. So we were able to actually update and modify the needs assessment to reflect that, which still shows 2 people in IT plus the IT manager. But we didn't have approved funds to be able to do the IT manager at that point, because it was already approved.
You mean GIS?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You are the IT
I am
manager.
the GIS guy, the GIS manager. But we didn't have the funds approved for my second position plus the GIS manager. And so after the recorder's office went through and otherwise, I ended up giving the funds that I had for my IT/GIS second position to fully fund the GIS manager position. So I'm still short the second person.
That was nice of you, man.
Yeah, team player.
I tried to. I explained that to you when I came up to you guys too. With the understanding that I'd be coming back at budget time asking for that second person. The needs assessment still also does say in 2024 that a part-time should be added then. But between now and then, I should be having at least 2 IT staff. What I was telling Ruth, and I haven't had my budget meeting with Chris or otherwise yet either, but I understand the budget shortfalls, and you guys are up against a big wall here. I'd be willing to do just an entry-level part-time IT tech for next year, kind of see how that goes. I could task them with a number of different things that would certainly free up my time quite a bit. There's some different initiatives and things that I'm looking at doing with changing some of the systems around here to cloud-based services, which free up a lot of different things. So I think I might be able to get this just doing a part-time person, but I need somebody. So,
What hourly rate approximately?
what we had talked about before was, what, 1941, it was like grade 7, I want to say, something like that. And again, if we do a part-time position, we don't have the budget for the benefit expense on top of that too, so.
Yeah, so, 1941 at 1040 hours, let's see. Just saying, calculating. I was trying to do it on the fly here, but,
Chris, if you hop back to that spreadsheet, you could just change the social media on the sheriff. We'll at least give you a calculation with FICA and workers' comp.
$18.59,
Right.
remember that number, 'cause I
You
can
could
plug it back
copy the
in.
whole column and
I guess. don't know, do you know what rate?
Grade 7, step 1 is 1951.
It's close, isn't it?
That's 20 grand rougher.
So about 24,284 for part-time. So what do you think? You want me to add that in?
It's either that or give me a full-time one.
Oh, better add it in before he gets,
And if I could just say, he has needed a full-timer for several years.
does that mean we can just pull the water mix out of the capital project since we're gonna have to cram somebody?
Yeah, exactly.
Just got the,
Chris Coffin just can't. Hand over his eyes. He's the one that has to deal with most of the angry people who.
That's true. Forgot about that.
fun
We've got a
guy.
buffer here.
I do too. They call me also.
all right,
All right, that's all I have, though.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
So I don't know, I mean, it sounds to me like the needs assessment doesn't really call out for the reclassified position at OSTA yet, but does it?
It doesn't, not until 2024 for that one. The maintenance one. 2024.
Well, the needs analysis is kind of weird where it shows the needs in 2019 and the needs in 2024. It doesn't really show how we are supposed to get from 2019 to
Yeah.
2024. So
It
it's
just
not
says-
like we just don't,
By 2024.
I mean, I think that it's kind of up to us, I guess, to figure out along the way how we add all those positions.
But you guys were just talking about possibly the travel council promotional budget, since that would be promoting and business development of the arena.
And so I guess if, there was, 6,200 worth of salary and benefits that could be classified as promotional, then we could potentially send some promotional TRT respective to that over. I mean, it's going to have to be something I explain to the auditors. They're going to be like, what is this one? But,
You got it.
I mean, we'd have to be able to show, I mean,
Yeah.
so this person would have to track the hours they spend on promotional stuff if we were going to send
It
travel
might,
council money over there.
they might need a year at it first before changing the funding source. I don't know.
What's their hourly rate reclassified?
2050.
2010 for grade 7 and step 2, is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 6,200, so it's not like,
I know, it seems
But-
like one big event, they could bring in the 62 things.
well, you have to realize the busier they get, they're going to have,
Then the more
it's
people
a,
they-
they don't, they make some money, but it's not a net gain, and so the busier they get, the more it's going to cost us. Same with the airport and almost everything else, and so,
In other words, they don't pay for themselves.
no, nothing does.
Sandflats.
Except for
Never
Sand-
have.
Sandflats is the only,
Sandflats.
Sandflats is the only one.
Right on, yeah.
And I think that we should start charging TRT up there.
I do too.
Okay,
I
come on.
mentioned that.
Yeah, I want to eat some lunch before next meeting.
Okay, so what else, does anybody else want me to do anything? We were at 663, 442.
That's six, what's in that one again? That's not Matt's one. That's,
So it's all these highlighted ones. It's the reclassification of Bryony's position.
okay.
It's,
Do you need to, can you hide those again?
yeah. So the training overlap costs,
Check.
HR assistant,
check.
part-time social media in the sheriff's office, PIO position.
I'm on the fence, but okay.
2 patrol deputies, 2 corrections deputies, no sergeants. The reclassification in both reclassifications in the attorney's office totaling about, 36,000 or something.
Yeah.
A maintenance worker at OSTA, reclassification of the admin assistant to operations assistant director, and part-time IT person.
So this social media person, there's somebody already getting paid to do this?
No, she does it for free.
But then we have, the Community and Economic Development, they do a bunch of social media posting.
For their department, they do.
And then the Travel Council has a paid social media position,
Part-time.
part-time.
Yeah, she
I mean,
wanted
this
that
one-
to go full-time, but I don't know if that was in the needs
So,
assessment.
this is, I mean, the
Steve
proposal,
Stock's wife, Melissa Stock's.
the proposal is, predominantly to deal with sheriff's office, as I understand it, with this.
Well,
There's
I thought the
special,
idea
I mean,
that she
there's,
would help with almost anything as far as like when it's
well,
emergency.
Steve's, yeah, when it's an emergency. I mean, Steve said that you would have to talk to her about expanding the concept of the position if we were to do that. I mean, at this point, I think it's more sheriff, emergency management related. And it really kind of, a person that does social media or any kind of PIO job in relation to emergency management requires special training, which she does have, so.
All right,
But,
well, it's $300,000 or something less than when we started, wasn't it? Wasn't it at like 900?
Like 931.
well, that wasn't including everything. If we included everything, then it would be
Right.
probably
Yes,
more. But,
Where are we now?
663,442.
And that includes the other position of the sheriff's department? IT?
The
PIO.
IT.
Social media, whatever.
Oh,
Communications specialist.
You guys want new positions? We growing this thing? It kind of seems.
So, okay, we gotta, if you wanna have lunch, then we better,
Yeah, that's. What do you think about all these new things?
Should I be ordering lunch, or are we talking about?
I think you
Yeah.
gotta do it. The sheriff's department, you don't have any choice.
I thought you were talking about lunch. I was like, yeah.
Me too.
No, we don't have any choice about that either.
Should we-
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we got a 1 o'clock emergency meeting, so.
Do we
Six
want
is
to
like
order
an hour.
lunch?
442.
442. All those in favor of ordering lunch?
Do we need 45 minutes for this other blank?
Maybe.
All right,
Then
let's.
the library. Is the
Oh,
busy?
library? We gotta do the library?
The library is, I guess somewhat simpler, but we do have to do the library.
Let's get some lunch.
We got this too to look at.
Oh, yes, lunch.
Is pizza okay?
You get one without cheese.
Or do you guys want, what do you want? I'm trying to keep it simple,
Yeah, whatever's fastest.
Pizza's fine.
without cheese.
Yeah,
I gotta go.
all the veggies, no cheese.
It's so good, just so they're good.
Although I do.
Get extra cheese
Get that
on
one
mine
you
and
had
I'm
out.
peeling the
Get,
crust.
Are we on a little recess? Or
It looks like 2 hours. Did you have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Do we have, should we bring somebody in to take the order?
Yeah, I'll get some.
Okay, let's do it now while we're recessing. I guess we're.
I guess we recessed because our chair just stood down. So, now you guys can pass it up and everything because you're not.
Sweet.
Chris, I have to ask about the glove. What's it with?
Oh, just got dry skin.
He's doing
Oh,
Michael
gotcha.
Jackson.
Too much outside work.
Oh,
Furnace comes on at home,
yeah.
hair dries out.
I'm surprised you don't have sequins on.
Yeah.
Little jewels and stuff.
My wife wears cotton gloves under her, she cleans, so she works with her hands and all the chemicals all the time. But she wears like double gloves, rubber glove and a cotton glove. But the cotton gloves like all the time.
I wear those at night.
Yeah.
I think it's also having to do with having the cast on that I had on earlier in the year. That really messed up my skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause you can't, they put this iodine stuff on there and you can't do anything with it for a month, so, yeah, it kind of,
Well, with any luck, we'll get to mitigate 366,000 of this
Of what?
CRT money.
so in our budget meeting, we talked about
Is
the
this gonna-
backside of
Yeah.
the increased notice being open.
I know, I haven't gotten through that, but it looked good as far as
This
I read.
was just like, I threw out everything.
Is that gonna fit? That's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah, it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But I wasn't trying to put words in y'all's mouth, I was just wanting to get something going,
I appreciate it.
Because
Thank you.
we're on
Thank you.
a serious deadline, because I'm
Yes.
gonna be sending my data out real quick, so.
Yep.
But I just wanted to let you know, I'm not trying to, like, this is just a starting point, just.
Initiative, I love it, thank you.
If you haven't noticed, I don't write much, so. the
I
more-
knew that if there wasn't something to work on, we wouldn't get anywhere with it, and I gotta have it.
Chris, I've got us on pause.
Okay.
You guys start with that.
Now's the time to make the wheel out.
Ouch.
Okay, when I get on record, this is what I want everyone to say.
Oh, man.
Having fun yet? It's not even, you haven't even got to the worst part when you have to have a public hearing.
I
And
know.
all the old grandmas come in. So it's gonna be, I mean, quite honestly, the only way that we're really gonna be able to make it into the future is with a property tax increase and TRT reform. Without both of those things, we're gonna be hurting. Most of this could be, if we didn't have to spend $3 million a year on promotion, then,
Be
it'd
nice.
be a lot easier.
Yeah, Terry, you're gonna miss all the fun, man. You're gonna come to the public hearings
That's
anyway.
why I wasn't happy when they turned down that $250,000 additional advertising money from the state.
You're gonna throw a party when you get, when you retire from your political career?
Yeah, it's gonna be at the cemetery.
I hope not. I'll definitely shave some years off your life, though, I'll tell you.
I don't need any more of those shaved off. How old are you now, Derek? 73? You're 73? Yeah. Wow, you're the senior guy on the council. The old guy. That old guy. Yep.
Man, we really lost everybody.
Are they gonna come
For 1
back?
second. I don't know.
It might not come back.
Oh.
Well, I got a little bit of calculating to do here anyway, so. Might actually have to, forgot that we've got library and general COLA.
I mean, there was years when Social Security did provide a COLA.
Yeah, those days are over.
Yeah.
Did or didn't?
Didn't. There was a couple of years when they said they didn't have the money, they were going to do it.
I better finish my breakfast before we get lunch.
Explain this to me. I know the question has probably been answered because I've asked it. I don't recall the answer, but on that Osta property out there, is it split into 2 lots and part of it was donated by BLM for recreation only and the part that the cell tower's going on isn't under those restrictions?
Yeah, that part was privately donated.
Okay, with no restrictions.
I don't know, I wouldn't say that necessarily because I haven't looked at any deed. I don't know if there's deed restrictions on it. I haven't heard.
Well, they can look back with a better offer.
A little different, yeah.
What was it, 1,500 more a month? Maybe?
I
A
don't think
3% increase every year, but I thought the 3% should be on the 400 rent for each person. Anyway.
So,
Yeah,
let's see,
I don't-
who are we missing, Mary?
We can start it up.
Yeah, we gotta.
Might as well get going.
Okay, let me get it on.
All right, we're out of recess, 11:18 a.m. Budget Advisory Board meeting. So,
And county council.
and County Council joint meeting. So, right now, we're at 663,442 for position requests. Does anybody want to?
Let's plug that bit into our formula and see where we're at.
Plug it in. Million something or other.
You mean like?
1
Well, I have to add all this up, but so yeah, right now.
I'm getting 1.294.
For what?
I might not have the COLAs right.
What's that?
Oh, okay.
So, probably, well, we'll get to the total here once we get through,
Okay.
because I'll plug the COLA in to the accounting software, but for a new position request, we'll just have to plug that in separately, because it takes a long time to actually add those into the budget. And I don't really want to add them in until we get further in the process anyway, but.
On your little white spreadsheet summary thing, is there a placeholder for that or no? Yeah, with the pie charts.
Well, that just has the total that we come up with. So for this pie chart thing, what we need to do is say,
Gotcha.
total, how much are we going to do the general operations?
Gotcha. Okay.
Total, how much are we going to do so we're not there yet. That's like the last thing
Okay.
that we'll do.
Facilities.
So, all right, so I guess, since we put in an offer on the USU property and we've been discussing, and it is also a part of the needs analysis for more space, the question of whether or not we want to budget anything for that. And so that could include sending some money from the general fund toward a down payment, plus budgeting for debt payment. Not that the one-time down payment would be factored into a property tax increase, but the debt payment probably would have to be. And we are looking at about $160,000 a year on about $2 million.
I'm sorry, I was out where.
For USU.
We're now covering this
USU.
last line, which is any expenses that we want to budget for our space needs or our new facility debt or whatever.
Where are we on that?
Well, we just kind of kicked the whole timeline out. You know, Christina and I got on the phone with their real estate guy, and I mean, they can't obviously vacate the premises until the new
Right.
campus is ready to go. And they determined that they really probably don't need the money right away to get the new campus built. And so, obviously, if we purchased it and then they were still there, that they would have to pay us rent,
Right.
which we would assess at the cost of the mortgage at least. And so they decided that makes no sense for them. They should just stay there until 2021, whenever. And so that kicks the whole process out, gives us more time. We don't really have time to do due diligence right now anyway. And so
So this is just.
I would just say that that whole thing is on hold for now, and I was kind of expecting to have everyone deal with that, in January and start up again on considering it. But the issue is that you don't, you've got a budget for it anyway if you want to do it, or even have the capacity to do do a budget amendment, but that would require a public hearing because you'd be increasing the bottom line.
Right, but we could budget for the debt and not necessarily budget for the down payment.
Well, if you don't budget for the down payment, then the debt payment's going to go up by almost double.
Or we might be able to pull the rabbit out of the hat if we're not actually making the down payment until towards the end of the year.
Well, there's the possibility of going to CIP for part of it too, which we haven't really discussed, going for a grant.
Oh, that would be great.
Although, I think
That's
EMS
on the
probably.
CIB list.
Is it? So, you have to realize that the CIB considers, the money that they hand out to be finite. It's not like an infinite amount of money that we have, and so we have to realize that almost $5 million got awarded to EMS, and so it's not likely that we'll get another big award anytime soon.
Why don't we sell some property?
That's a good idea. And I think that in reality, if we do make a down payment, that ultimately we want to replenish capital projects with proceeds from selling property. And it's the rule that if you sell property, that it has to go into capital infrastructure. You can't use it for M&O. And so it would have to go into capital projects anyway. And so, I would say that if we sent 1.8 million to capital projects, we're going to be really drawing the fund balance down very low.
Of the capital.
Because you'd have to send the money from somewhere, so you're sending it from the general fund balance. And so if we spend down what we budgeted in capital projects this year, where did I put it? I think that's in my narrative here somewhere. Well, that's the capital projects, but the general fund balance would be where it would come from. So we closed 2018 with close to 4.2 million in the general fund balance. And if we spend down what we budgeted this year for capital projects, then
Okay, it's on this.
we would have about 3.4 million beginning of 2020. So if we drew, 1.8 off that, it would be pretty dang low. Didn't bring myself
That's the
up.
down payment, 1.8.
That's what we propose. It's not, nothing's set. And so, we're talking about, a down payment.
And when would that be due?
The debt or the
Down.
down payment? It
Depends
probably,
when they want to move out.
it may not be until the end of 2021 or the beginning of, or the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021. So it just depends on when they want to close. They probably want to close all that at the end of 2020. Or at least be, have a bona fide final contract in place. Because they're not going to wait forever for us. They'll put it on the market and sell it, on the open market if we don't go fast enough.
But they're not eager to sell it until, they don't need to sell it to fund the future campus.
Would they need someplace to put their people?
Well, they would probably,
Right, so they need,
because they can't leave until they have a new place to go.
Yeah.
which they haven't even broke ground on yet, so it's,
So what is the 2020 need then that we're trying to budget for?
Well,
Well, we're trying to budget so we don't have to do this same scenario again next year.
well, that's not the only option either, and so you have to realize that our original idea was to redevelop around the courthouse, which is still an option also.
yeah.
Although, according to cost estimates, it's a more expensive option.
Yeah, a lot more.
But we haven't verified any of that, and so.
We're gonna have to do something, so we need to budget whether it's going to.
So it's not necessarily, like, if we budget for facilities, it's not necessarily for any particular plan, it's just something that we'll have. So the question is, do you want to act on the needs, the component of the needs assessment that calls out for new space
Yes,
next year or not?
yes.
I think we do.
I think, and we budgeted for a study this year, that we never did.
Well, we didn't budget for it.
Oh, I
That's
thought-
part of, that would have been part of the budget amendment that never happened. But that's, I guess that's another question that we need to plug in, is if we want to budget for an organizational analysis. Because if we build new space, then we'd want to build it looking into the future and determine, if the county's going to be reorganized in any way, we'd want the space to match that reorganization.
All right, we want to budget for expanded facilities.
Whether it's
Yeah.
county, USU, or building.
So the question is, how much in down payment and how much in debt payment?
What do you advise?
Yeah, what kind of a down payment are we looking at on that type of loan?
Well, I sent in is just, completely hypothetical, but 1.8 million down payment, 2 million loan. And the down payment could be part grant, could end up being part grant maybe with CIB.
Loan, the outside loan, or would they finance it?
It would be financed by, well, Zion's probably. I mean, it would
So
be.
an outside loan.
We would use our sales tax as security. And probably be looking at, the preliminary interest rate is actually pretty good, better even than CIB gives out. And so, unless CIB gave us a grant, I don't know that there would even be necessary to go to CIB for a loan, because they're already offering us a loan for what the CIB gives loans out for, so.
So with the idea of that we're trying to budget for recurring things.
So you wouldn't add in the down payment to this property tax noticing.
Okay,
It still would have to be budgeted though.
right. But if we, so it's a bit of a shell game, but if we budgeted for facility debt starting January 1st, but it didn't actually go into place until like third quarter of the year, would we have kind of built up enough to have a decent chunk of a down payment, plus kind of have that foresight of that debt payment for the future? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it's likely that we wouldn't actually start paying on debt until 2021.
So we could just budget a small amount, just in case they're like, hey, you need it now, or should we not even budget anything for 2020?
Well, to close on a loan, you would have to cough up whatever you budget for a down payment.
So
But
$1,000.
but it's likely that if we close on a loan in 2020, we wouldn't start the debt schedule until 2021.
So we'd be just doing the down payment.
So it may not be that we would have to budget anything for, but the question is, if we're just going to budget to meet our needs, strictly speaking, for next year, and then we raise the budget by 160, then all of a sudden you're next year in the position of saying, well, where are we going to get that 160?
So that's
That's the debt payment.
It's the down payment.
Wait, I thought 160 was,
The debt.
So let's budget for the debt, or at least a healthy portion of it.
whatever we're gonna have to pay every year.
The other thing to,
Budget.
I still need to figure out, but it will eventually happen relatively soon, is the retirement of the courthouse GO bond. And we have a fund balance in there that can cover, about 2.6 payments. And so I need to figure out, exactly when to start applying that balance, which will reduce the property tax levy and eventually eliminate it. So even though you can't notice that in truth and taxation notices, you can speak to it in public meetings, eventually that levy will go away.
Right, but it's very likely that we replace that levy with another one for
Because, I mean, that levy collects about 190-something thousand a year.
So that's one way to look at it is, most likely that would be retired almost completely in 2021, we're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, although I had a conversation with Chase, who is the lender that debt got sold to, and he he indicated to me that we've got about 1.4 million left on it, which is that's more than just 3 years. So I need to verify that. I was just going off the debt schedule that Diana had in her computer, and so I don't know if that's accurate or not. But it's coming within the next few years. It will come to an end, which will help with that big pie. The total number of dollar figures of taxes collected will go down by that amount, within the next few years. But you can't include that in your noticing, but you can include it in the discussion. But I guess what I'm getting at is, do you want to look at this property tax increase just specifically for next year or further into the future?
I want to go further in the future. I don't want to have to be looking at doing it again. And that's mine.
I'm on board with that.
I mean, we will have to. I mean, you're going to always have to,
Yeah, but you don't want to do it
But
next
not
year.
soon. I'd like to be
Yeah.
able to wait at least 10 years or so.
Well, that is one strategy, but you can also look at the school district as the sort of opposite strategy of.
They do little ones every
Yeah,
year.
little ones every year.
And I would say that the legislature, when they set this system up, had in mind more frequent, smaller increases because they didn't build anything in for inflation. If you're static, you get what you got the last year every time. And so
doing.
there's the hold your breath as long as you can, then boom, which is kind of where we're at right now. And then there's the.
So you're thinking be it more.
I'm saying that there's two options or somewhere in between.
What they do is they really watch.
I think the county ought to be looking at a 2-year cycle personally. 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, the school district does it every year, and people don't even show up for it anymore, because it's just like a regular routine thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and a lot of it is offset. The rate stays very similar
Yeah.
because they try not to increase so much that the rate actually goes up. And basically they're capitalizing on the increased assessed values in the county.
So if we budget some for facility debt and then we don't end up spending any in 2020, does that go into the capital projects fund, or?
Well, yeah, I would definitely set it as reserved for that payment for what you're saying. I mean, it would be for the purposes that you indicated. And so, I mean, it would make sense to set it aside. And, a $2 million loan is a pretty small loan when you're looking at building or purchasing office space. And so that would probably be the minimum that I would think.
$2 million?
$2 million loan, so that's about $160,000 a year payment.
So let's go ahead and kind of plug that in, so
And
that it's.
the current one on the courthouse is 190.
Yeah.
I just borrow more money and substitute the 190 for 190 in debt on this over here, the USU, and then make the down payment less and then do the tax rate for that.
How does the length of loan compare on those two?
It's shorter, that's why it's kind of a high annual for that amount of money. It's 20 years. 15 to 20 is what typical excise sales tax bonds are. Although we're going to do one for the airport that's 30. So I guess it's not set in stone,
But
but
would the
Zion's
interest-
quoted me,
Would the interest rate be lower, though, than the courthouse one is now?
I
I
can't
mean, it's
remember.
almost 0% interest.
I can't remember what the courthouse one is. Geo bonds, I mean, when you go to the voters and you actually pass a geo bond, that's usually your lowest interest rate that you can possibly get. Because it's as concrete revenue stream as there is. Sales tax is pretty good too, but it's not quite as concrete as a geo bond. But geo bonds require that you go to vote. You have to pass it in an election. The excise sales tax bond would only have to go to election if it was protested with a petition of a certain number of signatures. And then it would be forced to go to a vote.
Courthouse is sales tax bond.
Geo. It's been refinanced. So what do you think, 160 then as a placeholder debt payment for space?
I like it.
Anybody have anything else to say about that?
What do you think, Christopher? I think that's a good number.
I don't know, it's hard to say when you don't have the down payment really figured out when it's gonna start, like the loans.
But for our purposes of tax increase,
Well, you're also budgeting for it before you need it, but again, that's kind of the strategy of whether you are trying to get it all done in 1 year, or whether you want to say, let's do what we know we need this year and do what we need.
Well, I think that we can close on a loan next year if we wanted to.
I think 160 is still a pretty small bite.
So,
I think it's important to have something.
one question I have is, you said that geo bond was renegotiated or refinanced. Can we refinance that again?
I don't know.
Be interesting to see if you could do a refi on that at a lower interest rate for 30 years and just pull that money out and put it over on this other one.
Well, if you refinanced it to include new debt, you'd probably have to go back to the voters. It's it was a remodel, the courthouse remodel,
Yeah.
and so I would think that if you do
Yeah, so it's
anything
probably-
that actually increases the amount of money owed,
Yeah.
would probably have to go back to the voters.
Yeah. That wouldn't be an option.
okay.
So 160.
And that will cover down, if we end up moving, that will cover that for next year.
We'll go
As
for a while.
it will cover a debt payment of up to 160. And so, there's going to be closing costs and everything associated also, which can pull, but even
We're
if
probably
we,
not gonna close in 2020, or I think we're gonna close in 2021, you think?
could close in 2020,
They're
and debt
breaking
schedule
ground in
starts in
spring,
2020.
so depends on how fast.
So how much debt is that 160 going to carry?
2 million.
It will carry the 2 million at 1% rate
It was like 2.4, I think,
For 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
And so, Chris, if we budget that 160 for next year and for some reason don't close, can that go toward down payments?
It can go towards down payment or put on reserve for debt payments.
Okay, let's do it.
And again, we realize we're just noticing at this point, we're not approving anything.
Yep. You can always back it back.
Are we still thinking about selling property then?
I would think so, yeah, but it's a longer term issue, and I think that our property in San Juan is gonna appreciate pretty quickly as soon as the water and sewer gets
Yeah.
in,
Well,
which
as
is
soon as they
coming
verify that
fast.
well in King Creek too, so they're pulling water from over there, then all bets are off in San Juan.
So I think.
What do you mean
that-
all bets are off?
Well, they'll be doing development without worrying about the aquifer that we've got. It's pull it out of.
Right, but in terms of having infrastructure connected to the property we own, that's gonna increase the value of it.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, so
So if we
it's
sold-
worth sitting on it until that stuff's
I
in
would, yeah,
place.
until you at least find that out.
But we have other properties.
I understand that, but I'm
But I
just,
mean, I'm just saying in town.
yeah, no, I understand that, I just was being specific.
And a lot of that will hinge on if we do this USU thing, because we're sitting on property.
So 160.
Okay.
All right, so
Thank you.
now to tackle, I mean, the library, I would say, you know, there's a couple other issues to consider when we're talking about the full amount. And that's that, you know, there's some contingency built into both budgets, the library and the general fund. It's considerably less, I would say, for the general fund than it has been in the past, but because last year we tightened down on the budgets, and this year we're tightening down even more, getting closer and closer to actuals spent. But there's still probably some contingency, but it's hard to say because we haven't actually closed 2019 now, which is the first year that we use this process of budgeting. So it's kind of difficult to say.
And more importantly, the first year, like the sheriff said, that we've got more positions filled.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's a big change also from the past where, you know, we would go a whole year with four, you know, or more, four patrol and multiple, you know, also corrections going unfilled. We can talk about, you know, just in unfilled positions, and that's not really contingency, so to speak, but, you know, we're talking $500,000 in unfilled positions. And and in the past, you know, the difference between the budget and the actuals could be as much as 800,000. But now, because we've tightened up on the contingency, plus we're actually filling vacant positions, that number's gonna shrink dramatically, I
Yeah,
think.
it's gonna-
but you bring up the contingency of like, in
So-
our overall ask or whatever.
So, I mean, it's more, I would say, I mean, there's probably gonna be some contingency in the general fund, although not a lot. But the library is still budgeting with what I would consider to be a lot of contingency. And so we can look at total expense history in the library.
Is this just
Well, like,
pretty
let's
much
see,
just-
so, you know, in 2018, the library spent $836,008.
It's pretty much just personnel costs.
No, I mean, the library actually has a fairly significant operating budget because they purchase a lot of books and materials and stuff, and so. I know we haven't gone over the library yet, but I would say that if we did, that we would probably trim quite a bit, we could trim quite a bit out to match the actuals in the library. We haven't necessarily done it in the past because we weren't going through a property tax increase consideration. But you can see that, you know, there's a pretty big difference between what they spent in 2018, this 836, almost 837, and what they're requesting in 2020.
But that includes wages, right?
Yeah, and so there is a big change in wages, obviously. And I don't know how much we want to consider that there's contingency built into this budget. This is just exactly what Carrie provided to me, and we haven't vetted this budget in the Budget Advisory Board yet.
So what's our task right now, to just kind of say, okay, and pass on what Carrie's asking?
Well, so,
or to,
What's the difference?
So right now, with no,
This
you
year
know,
and next
so,
year.
no COLA, so, let's see, so for the budget for 2019 is 974, budget request, 1,013,510. So it's not a huge increase in the budget. And so maybe, you know, it's hard to say how much contingency there is. I mean, it's something to bring up that when we budget isn't likely to end up being what we spend.
It's Christina, I'm calling. Shall we switch gears or what?
Switch gears.
No, sorry.
Darcy, you guys have questions?
She got what she wanted.
Yeah.
Hang on just one second.
We got
At least
what you-
temporarily.
Right?
It's
You
a-
had a position request, or a position question?
We did what she wanted.
Oh, the question was, is Christina on the line?
Are you on the line, Christina?
I am.
So the question that we had is if we approve your reclassification and add a deputy attorney, is there any possibility of reducing your contract deputy line item from the 50,000 that it's at now?
Fine, last.
Great, thanks, love you.
What'd she say?
Here's how it works, you know, this is what we talked about, is that the county attorney in particular, it's hard to know what litigation will ensue through the year. So we have to spend the fees we have to spend, and if I need to, you know, amend the budget later, that's what I have to do. So yes, I'm willing to reduce the deputy line item knowing that if there's a suit, and/or, you know, additional major crimes or whatever, where we might need conflict of interest questions like this one Jackson complaint that has to go outside. Any of that stuff, it is what it is, but I appreciate not putting in too big of a buffer since we don't know.
So what are you thinking then? It's at 50,000 right now. If we go through with the reclassification, how much can we knock off that 50,000?
Well, the difference that I was asking for those two position restructures was about 36, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to take that 36 off, but what I don't want to do is take the 36 off and not get the position approved. So,
All right.
you know,
Okay.
I don't know exactly what that timing looks like, but if I have to.
All right.
I can do that.
Nobody's gonna sue us.
Right?
Great.
No.
All right,
But
thanks.
there will be crimes committed.
There will
Not in
be
this
crimes.
town.
Yeah, right now.
No problems here.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Sleepy
That's
Hollow farming community.
all right. That's I think all we need to know for now.
All right. Take
Thank
care
you.
of me, people.
We are.
Thank you. We're having pizza.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Pizza, pizza, pizza.
What numbers are those? So I think the easiest way to deal with this is just to knock that out of the position request if it's going to be reciprocally nullified in the other budget for now.
So you're suggesting, what, did you say that again? I didn't.
Do you think that she wants the whole 50 knocked out?
No, she said 36 to come
36
out.
out.
Fantastic.
So that's.
She'll be back,
though.
Mid-year. It's okay.
I just want to make sure we ask her.
627. So going back to the library then. Just make a note real quick.
I let Carrie know that we're on Mondays.
So, yeah, I mean, with the libraries, I guess the question is, you know, what do we want to budget for a property tax increase? We're in the red, I think 278 without a COLA, and so if we add the COLA, that'll add in 11,400-ish.
How many people do they have working there?
They lowered the amount.
That's what I was gonna say.
All these ones here. What's up there?
16. 15 under carry.
Did you ping Carrie?
Yeah, she pinged Carrie.
Oh, Carrie, yeah. Chris, you want some water?
What's
You guys want some water?
Sure. I mean, this can be reduced once we, again, this can be reduced once we go through your budget.
So really, we're just trying to guesstimate a contingency that's built in here?
Well, you don't like I say, you don't necessarily have to raise property taxes to cover contingency.
Over here.
But since we haven't reviewed her budget, it's kind of hard to say what contingency exists in there.
She is gonna pop over.
Is there a placeholder on that averaging spreadsheet for the library? Can we look at what it would be like if it was $1 million plus?
If it was what? Oh.
What's the increases?
Let's see if I can bring it up from the last meeting we had.
I have I don't have the full amount in. It's pretty hefty.
The increase calculator?
Yeah. I've got that plugged in and I know it's more than that because I think I must have done the COLA wrong. That through what I'm gonna have today. Should we have declared conflicts? We all
You're a
pay
property
taxes.
owner.
Yeah.
Let's all declare that at the beginning of the meeting.
We should.
That'd be all. That's funny.
Like a
That's,
reverse conflict.
I want to declare that I pay property tax. We should all do that today.
Well, we haven't split it out. We haven't got there yet, so we haven't split
Carrie's here.
Come up here, Carrie, so you can talk into a mic.
here's your,
Hey, Karen. So I guess that we're at the point where we have to determine how much we want to notice for the library's property tax increase. And based on the budget you gave me, I'm looking at almost $279,000 shortfall, not including COLA. So do you want to notice for that whole amount with COLA? Because we already decided to go for it.
Yeah, so as usual, the benefits cost and the salary costs and then potential increases to those salary costs, including not just the COLA but the pay for performance, I have no control over those. So the budget that was presented that the library board recommended to the budget committee and then the council didn't include anything in salaries and benefits. So there's very little change to last year's budget. There's very little change from the 2020 request from the 2019 in any type of operational line item. So, I mean, this is fundamentally a question of salaries and benefits in regards to the library budget, as I imagine it will be with the general fund as well. So, I'm not sure I have the answer to that question, Chris. And there's no increased staffing in there. I'm not asking for any additional positions. There's nothing. It's simply a percentage increase based on benefits, costs, and salary increases.
Did the board have a position on where they'd like the fund balance to stay at, or?
There was no discussion as far as an ideal amount of a fund balance. It was more a matter of the insustainability of continuing to fund continuing to fund the difference using the fund balance, which was done for this year, 2019, and I believe conceivably could probably be done for 2020, but that's going to take it down to absolutely bare bottom. So that would not be that would not be, I can confidently speak for the board, that would not be the recommendation of the board, primarily because the budget does not include any monies into a capital projects account. And as you'll remember, there was a catastrophic failure of the library roof that had to be dealt with. Any type of anything like that, we don't have very much money in the capital projects account, and there's nothing being budgeted into it. So that fund balance is basically an emergency fund to cover any type of thing like that were something to occur again, unprojected.
So, in the capital fund, you're doing some proactive things to, as far as what's going to need to be maintained and fixed and changed to prevent another catastrophe, or is there anything like that in the fund?
So there was a small amount, probably around, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I'm sorry. I think around $150,000 that was in the capital projects account that has been in there for years. And it was kind of leftover money from the building of the new library, which is going on 13 years old. So when the roof failed, that money was there for capital projects. But there's nothing going forward being budgeted into that as the library continues to age. We say new library building, but it's 13 years old at this point.
Well, it's like new
And-
back in
Yeah, exactly. And so, with nothing being budgeted into that account, we're fortunate that we had that money left over from the build.
So I
But-
guess what I'm asking is, the current budgeting to start putting into the capital projects.
That would definitely be the recommendation, and it was something that the board talked about as well. I've also spoken with Sean, who's maintenance supervisor, and one of his thoughts was that county-wide, there needed to be money into a capital projects account, and that the county's facing the same type of thing. That if it's not budgeted into that capital projects account, when you have an emergency situation, you have somewhat limited options at that point. So I'm not sure what the question is, Mary, but if the question is there money being budgeted into the capital projects account for 2020, the answer is no.
That's what I'm
No, this proposed budget does not include monies into the capital project.
And I think there should,
Almost 100%.
Is there any kind of insurance on the building?
I'm sure there is. That would be a question for, I guess, Jan is the
Do you have
one.
any insurance on the library building?
Of course we do.
That would cover bad roof?
I think that Janet filed a claim, and we may have gotten something for water damage. I can't remember. I'd have to go ask Janice.
Yeah.
But we have insurance on all of our buildings.
well, it seems like that should be part of the budget, is to be putting into capital funds every year to build it up. Am I wrong?
Nope. But do we want to put it in their capital fund or the county's capital fund?
They have some there.
Chris, you sent the calculator thing?
Chris has reworked it. It's
It's all up here. I mean, I've got it. So, I mean, I guess if we plug in the library's shortfall plus a COLA, 1.7, we're looking at about a $290,400 increase. With what we've added up in the general operations, we're at a $2,536,000 increase. That's about a 90.10% increase to general operations. and a 40.65% increase to the library total budget. So, I mean, down here, the calculation, so for an average residential home, $242,000 value, the general operations increase would be $179.05. Commercial would be $325.55, and this is the increase.
That's the increase.
For those.
Just for the library?
No.
For everything.
This is just for general operations, the general fund, 179.05, and then 325.55 for commercial. The library operations would cost $20.50 a year more. For residential, $37.28 more for commercial.
This is if your property is valued at 240,000, market value.
242.
So that's
So-
about $15 a month.
And then for, there's also mosquito abatement, which is, we're not necessarily, we're kind of in control of, because tonight you'll vote on whether or not you approve that also. The total increase for residential, given what we've got, is $207.49 a year for residential, and $377.25 a year for commercial, which represents an increase of about 10.68% on the total dollars collected.
That's in addition to any reevaluation of the property.
That's right. And so, this is kind of showing how it changed. This is what the pie looks like as total budget. So you can see that Grant County's went up quite a bit. And now, the school district on the property tax bill will represent about a little more than 50%, it looks like, 51% of the tax bill. Then Grant County's portion will be, I don't know, it looks like 30%-ish. That's the reality of it right there. Anybody want to?
Be nice if it was less.
But it's not.
So if we
We're
did
lucky it's
this,
not
that
more.
would be the max that would go up, correct?
That would be the max.
Max that you could go up, yeah.
One potential way to reduce it would be to factor in a few items that we've talked about. Some amount for contingency on either one could potentially be factored in. And, if we're totally wrong on that, you can raise taxes in future years as well. We can probably, I'd say, safely count on 75,000 in new growth to the general fund, and maybe 15,000 to the library. That's about what it was this year, which is a pretty.
Well, you have
I'd
to
say
realize
middle of the
that
road.
this is factoring in that new growth is going to be factored in. It's a component that they make us factor into the certified rate. But
Yeah, this is 2020 new growth, not 2019.
Did you already,
but they include in the. Go ahead.
no, that's fine. I was interrupting, sorry. Did you say that you've already put into this budget the additional requests from organizations as they requested it?
Yeah, so.
So the 208 for fire
So
is
what we
still
can
in there?
do,
Let's
is
take
go
the
in
200.
and look at contributions to other agencies.
Let's do that real quickly.
So here's the fire district contribution.
And I can't see it, where is
It's
it?
208 right now.
I think,
What amount should we reduce it to?
now, when, historically, before 2019, 2018, we were historically giving how much? About
10,000.
10,000. So that's a huge increase.
But I think you need to find out who they're giving that to.
When we had the meeting with them, they said that they could live with 100,000.
Well, I don't remember that, but they did say that they were open to negotiation.
Well,
Yeah, I wasn't in that meeting, so I don't know. So.
well, both Jalen and I have talked about, we still haven't been given a clear answer on how much it is truly costing them, because if they chose not to go to the county, if they chose to not go outside their district, how much money are they going to save?
Well, part of the complicating issue is they've already purchased 2 big fire engines specifically for going outside. So they kind of already spent over $1 million on that equipment that they wouldn't need unless they were going out of their district. So they've already spent that, and obviously our 10,000 a year didn't cover much of that.
But they came in under budget this year.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at their finances.
Yeah,
so.
they've come in under budget.
So you want me to reduce that to 100?
I do.
Out of microphone, yeah.
I don't. I think you could reduce it later.
All right, let's do a little straw poll then and see. We don't have a lot of time to haggle. Who wants to go to 100?
Sure.
Those who don't? Those who have no opinion? So I think that the ayes, I'm just going to put that at 100 then. Let's see, where else? Sea Cave asked for 5,000 more. They have been at 10,000, they asked for 15. Sea Cave.
I'd probably leave them at 10 for this year. I mean, I think it's a reasonable request, but in this budget year, oh my gosh.
Leave them at the same rate.
Anybody have a problem with going back down to 10?
No.
I would like to compromise.
No.
I would, I'd like to maybe go 12 and a half. Sounds like I'm the only one.
I can support that, but
I mean, then we give them something, and that's,
All right, so who wants 12 and a half? Raise your hand.
Sure. I mean, when we're talking about millions of dollars, 2.5.
All right, that's a majority, so we're going to go 12 and a half.
What is that? Utah State University.
That's our payment. That's our half of the payment
okay.
on the
So we can't
infrastructure.
reduce that, can we?
No, that's already by agreement.
Okay.
And so there is that. Then there was Humane Society, which I think had a slight increase in their request. I mean, we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like $2,000.
it's like 2,000 bucks, let's leave it.
For animal control issues.
But that's, I mean, they're not leaving Moab City, are they?
They do, yeah,
Yeah.
they do the whole.
They don't come out. Yes, really.
If somebody calls it.
No, we're not talking about animal control at the city. We're talking about the Humane Society, which does, fosters dogs and does discounted spay
How
and
much-
neuter,
how
blah,
much
blah,
they
blah.
want?
I'm trying to find, they are asking for 12,000 and we historically have been giving them 10.
Go for it.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Nice.
Whoa.
We're kind of nickel diamond here. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, let's stay out of the weeds.
I mean, that one's not going to make a big difference, but we can come back to that, the budget advisory board probably.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, and then, this one's gonna be a little harder for me to do the plumbing on, but,
Then is it something-
CNHA, normally we budget 10,000 a year, they don't
What is
even,
that?
that's for the MIC improvements, the Moab Information Center, so we already are gonna buy a roof this year, they're asking for 18,000 for new carpet next year. I don't know, it might be a good year to just use the old carpet for a while, I don't know, but,
When was the last time they put carpet in there?
I don't know.
Probably when they
They've done
built it.
since I've been here.
They build it?
I know they've had roof leaks, I don't know if that messed with the carpet or not.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
So I guess the carpet, probably can stand to be replaced, but so the budget as it stands is 10,000, which is kind of what we normally put in there as, just a placeholder to deal with any kind of building issues. But they don't really spend that much usually, although this year they're gonna spend whatever the contract was for the re-roof, which is a lot. We budgeted 50.
It's our building.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, I guess it's enough to maybe consider at this point whether or not we want to go to the 18,000 or what.
Well, that's where your tourist economy goes.
How much do they pay in rent?
A lot of people go through there.
They're 24 or 2,600 a month, something like that.
Yeah, I can't.
But they're doing the job that our travel council would have to do.
Yeah, I mean, part of just being a landlord is taking care of the business, or the building.
The building we need to get.
Yeah, that's in our lease agreement.
Yes or no? 18 new carpet or
18.
not?
15. They can get the cheap stuff.
10.
I think, let's keep
I'm
it at
kidding.
18, I mean, it's not,
Comes in for less than,
18?
yes.
Add up. Are you sure?
what do you want, Chris?
I don't know.
How many square feet is that building? It's not more than 2,000.
Oh, so we typically give 10, is what we give?
That's normally what we budget.
Okay.
So they're asking,
$9
this,
a square
that's
foot.
putting in 8,
Well, yeah, so, I don't know. It is a contribution that's gonna go in, that's gonna improve our assets. So it's not like we're really giving the money to CNHA, it's actually going to our own building.
Chris, do you know whether they got any estimates for replacing that carpet?
Yeah, that's where the 18 came from.
And the roof bid is accurate as well?
I can't remember how much the roof came in. You approved it on the council for whatever it was. Can't remember what it was. It wasn't 50, I don't think.
Let's do the 18, we can whittle it down later.
So that's gonna mean that I have to, this is gonna put this budget running out of time here.
What were you gonna do?
10, so now
And it's
we're.
currently in there at what we've done every year.
So it takes a while for me to do these interfund things. I'm just gonna have to tabulate that separately. I'll just remember to come back and fix it when I balance all the funds. Was there any others? I think the fire district was a real big one to consider. So,
Yeah.
let me look at where that brought us down to, let's say 1007.
I'm sure we can chisel another $6,000 out, let's just make it an even mill.
Well, then we lose track of our
Make it
justification
90,
because of
and
these
90.
we don't.
1,000,000. Brings it down a little. So now we're at an 86.2% increase.
Okay.
Anything else to factor in?
I mean, it barely
Wait, what's
moved.
our total now?
The total increase is $2,426,000. That would represent now, on a residential tax bill of market value $242,000. The increase would be $171.29 for residential, $311.43 for commercial, and that's just on general operations.
Yeah.
The total increase is looking to be $199.72 total between all three property tax increases for residential and $363.13 for commercial per year, which is about 10.32% increase in not necessarily anybody's bill, because this takes into account all the different districts, and nobody's necessarily in all of them. But if you do happen to be in the mosquito abatement district, then that will be the increase. And if you're not, then it will be that much less, $7.93.
And what's that line 68 in the spreadsheet?
Where?
Is it the,
This one?
yep,
That's our assessing and collecting plus the library's bond all combined. Those don't really change, and so I
Okay,
kind of
great.
just smashed them all together.
but those, okay, those stay flat.
Contingency, anybody?
So,
I mean, I would like to, but I'd also, you know,
What, add more for contingency
no,
or take
chisel
off?
it out.
Okay.
I would like to chisel it out more, but I don't know if we got the time before this joint meeting, and so.
Well, I don't know, we have,
Well, you can,
I'm not even ready for the meeting yet, and so.
you can bring it
Yeah.
down if you need to.
And I was
You
gonna
can't
try to
make
get
it
through
go
all the
up.
minutes
Right.
that I saw.
So I'd leave it.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
I
it
would-
makes me sick. It's hard. What are your thoughts, Christopher?
I've been giving them
Yeah, I
as much
know.
as I've got them.
So I think leaning towards going for
Well, I think
smaller increments is what,
it,
it's easier to swallow.
I think
Well,
that it's come, you know, there's the argument that, you know, why not do the absolute maximum on your advertisement and then come back down to whatever you want? And the reason why not is because of the public perception and the political blowback, which is something you all have to deal with. So that's where the decision point's at. I mean, as far as noticing doesn't actually do anything to the budget until we pull the trigger and make a change to it. So, you know, the decision now is on noticing, and that's what you guys have to weigh.
I mean, when this goes out, and then you start getting comments back, that's time for you to negotiate. And it's not like we just plugged in the maximum amounts. We did whittle it down, and we went through, you know, we did a fair bit of budgeting in this meeting. But, yeah, this will restrict you. Whatever you notice is going to be the ceiling. And this will give, you know, so this is going to give, it's going to, you know, all the county ones combined for this $242,000 residential, you know, you're going to go from about 1,320, you know, 1,300-ish to 1,524-ish, so $200 increase for most people
So Chris,
in residential.
when you're bringing up the contingency with our new budgeting model or process, do you see a thing with how to calculate for that contingency?
It's really hard to say. I mean,
Last year, we were saying maybe 300,000, I think, at around, you know, around this time last year. But we don't have anything to back it up with yet until 19 closes out. Like Chris was saying, you know, in the past, it could be as much as 800, but.
So in 2018, I mean, just as a, for instance, yeah, can you fire a calculator? I could probably get this.
No, I got it.
Divide 12,274,000
Wait. That's a lot of zeros. 12
Million.
274,000.
Oh, wait, jeez.
Just look up there and type it.
You can see, divide this number by that number.
This is why,
The full year 2018 actuals versus the budget. That's how much less was spent versus what was budgeted.
what's the number I'm dividing it by?
This one, divide this. This is the numerator and denominator over here.
Which one's on top?
The denominator is down.
I know.
Actually, we've done it in Excel.
It's,
I know,
yeah.
if I
It's a
had my
lot
Excel
of
still open, I
numbers
was
to
thinking
read.
about it, but I don't.
I got it as 900ths. Is that,
That's not right.
okay?
You did it wrong. Let me see your calculator. Just let me see.
Give it here.
Where is my program? 12,274. Oops. I did it wrong too. I can't work your phone. I didn't do it in Excel. 12,274.
I'll get my phone out.
Divided by 12,783. So it's about, I guess, 4% contingency on 2018. But you have to remember that we tightened things up quite a bit for 2019.
So if there was 2% contingency, what would that put us at?
What did we have in our
At a
spreadsheet?
12,240,000.
So can we make it an even 10 million?
So if we multiplied that by 98.98, he gives us a 2% cut down to 2.377 million. So that's cutting 2% out to try to account for contingency.
But you cut 2% of the increase.
Correct.
Oh, I see what you mean. I should have, that's just a component actually of the,
Yeah. 2% of 12 million is 240,000. And
240, that's
yeah.
what you say? So just minus 240?
It's looking better, but
And I would also bring up new growth, like I said. You know, you can't count on it every year, but I think if you drive around town and look at the construction that's
Yeah.
happening, you can count on something. It's going to be there.
so how would we calculate for that?
This year's amount was $75,000 between the general fund and the county A&C.
So
It's been higher in the past some years.
subtract another 75,000? No? Is that too ambitious?
Just did it.
And for the library, they got 15,000 this year, new growth.
How much, well, I don't know what the contingency is on the library, but what's 2%? I don't know. Minus, what'd you say, 11
About 10,000.
for new growth?
For the library, 15,000 is
15?
this year's amount. about $1 million.
For 2020, that was proposed.
Close, yeah.
Can I confirm something on that, though? Can I?
Yeah.
As we're discussing this budget, am I correct in my assumption that that still does not include any budget to the capital projects account?
Not unless I just plugged in exactly what you sent me.
Okay, so,
And then filled out the positions as they are right now.
okay, well, I haven't seen those numbers, so I don't, as far as salary and benefits,
But I didn't
which is
budget any
the greatest
expense to go to
percent.
capital projects unless you did.
Okay. Well, I am simply reminding the council that that does not include anything into the budget, the capital projects account.
I mean,
And for
one of the
13
things-
years, we haven't had anything budgeted into it, so I'm not saying it has to happen next year.
Well,
I'm just
there's going to
saying,
be a cruise in there for prior year redemption, tax penalties and interest, because it's its own separate line item for a bond. And so it does get, that stuff on top of what the bond calculation is.
But you'll just have to use that at the end to pay it off early, right? That's the plan.
Well, I guess, probably. I mean, I don't know if you can technically, if you're using it specifically for the, yeah, I probably would, I don't know. I mean, it's going into the pot, but I guess theoretically you're supposed to spend it not paying the debt off. No, it's extra. But anyway, yeah, no contribution to capital, I don't think. Zero.
If there's a desire to reduce the general fund one lower, another way to think about it would be to hope that TRT reform happens, and if it doesn't, you'd have to raise that in the future. It would also be, if it doesn't happen, it would also be money that would come out of the general fund balance for 2020.
Of course, are we gonna see any change in 2020?
No.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, I
That
wouldn't
is
want to
the
necessarily
big
budget
question.
on that.
I mean, I guess you could hope that it comes through and budget, pull 300,000 off.
I don't know why you're considering, as much, I mean, I realize it's unpopular to raise taxes, but, what we're doing is we're trying to increase taxes to pay for the government, and now we're trying to cut them back down so it's politically more acceptable. And the bottom line is, at some point in time, the council's gonna have to bite the bullet and raise the taxes, whether you wanna go through the same painful process 2 or 3 years from now is, but doing what we're doing right now, you're gonna save, maybe $10 on a tax bill. And, that's a couple of cups of coffee for people, or a pack of cigarettes, or whatever their habits are, and I just don't see it. I think it's, I think that, we shouldn't be looking at trying to figure out how you're gonna cut out $10,000 or $15,000 or whatever it is. I think we ought to do the tax increase and do it once and live with it, and then, 2 or 3 years from now, revisit it. But, it's not gonna be any less politically acceptable on a $10 or $12 variance in the tax bill. It's still not gonna be, people are gonna be upset because they're gonna be paying more taxes. And I just don't think that, I think, if you decide to do it in December, it's gonna be a lot easier, more palatable to do, than it is gonna be trying to raise the money next April when you find out that you don't have it.
I mean, most of what we're talking about, Terry, is just trying to estimate reality. And so what we're knocking off is elements, we're trying to get as close as we can to the actual need versus the theoretical need. And so,
okay.
I mean,
But
that's...
may I remind you, specifically with the library budget, I do have a line item that would be considered pure contingency, and that is a grant match, because I don't get grant opportunities every single year. But if I don't have that grant match there, and I get an awesome $100,000 grant that I've got to have a 10% match on, if I don't have that $10,000 there, I can't even apply for the grant.
Well, you
So-
shouldn't have said that, Carrie, because now we're gonna pull the 10,000.
Well, that's fine, but then when I come to you and say, hey, can we redo this? Otherwise, I'm not gonna be able to, it's more work down the road, and if I don't need the $10,000 grant match, I don't use it.
Yeah.
And it can only be used for the library fund, and I understand it's a little bit more simplistic for my situation than generally for the general fund. I do understand that. But there is reality in those contingency line items, at least for the library.
All right,
Well, I mean, the contingency, to a degree, can be switched around too. If you don't have the grant, then it could end up going towards roof repair, or whatever. So, I mean, that's kind of reality that we're looking at.
That's true,
Is
but
if
I've
we
never
have
done that in
those-
the past.
Yeah,
I've never done that.
well, I mean, money's money, and so we have to pay for that roof repair somehow. And so it's, from that perspective, it's your contingency that's gonna cover it.
I feel all right with noticing these amounts that we have highlighted here.
Okay, everybody good with that? All right, then, it is.
Wait. No, we got the backside.
Backside of the notice,
Oh,
please,
yeah,
don't
I
forget it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm not gonna be ready for this.
So we're mailing out a notice, and on the backside of the sheet, it's blank. So we put dibs on claiming that and printing this, and this is Kaufman's first stab at what to include on the backside.
I just wrote something up to put things out there and get the ball rolling for you guys to put on there whatever you want.
And this needs to get sent to the printer tomorrow?
Yeah, well, it needs to be approved today, and then Chris and I are gonna have to
So
get together
did we-
tomorrow and get it all finalized and ready to go. So, whatever the council decides to notice is gonna have to be decided tonight.
So I would like to have the numbers that go in here for the repeated, for the recommendation, and that's what we're doing here, correct?
It'll be on the backside of that, so they'll
So
get all
you're-
the numbers.
But what you're saying is you want to take this breakdown of where the money's going and put that on there. That's what you're saying. So.
I think she just wants to know how to make the motion this evening, so fill in the blanks for somebody
Oh,
to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
oh,
Thank you.
okay, well, I'll do that, I'm planning on doing that already.
Okay, thank you.
But, I guess the question is, do we want this reiterated in that notice?
You want, okay.
Like we're saying, this,
No,
you don't want them?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't fight against it, but
I think it was on the backside of the paper. Won't it be on the backside of the paper now? Or not the breakdown between COLA and capital projects?
Well, we would,
I like make potential in bold letters.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh.
It's worse than you think.
Anybody else want potential in bold?
Sure.
Because I don't want to, because that,
What about the?
We're using internet grammar on our official communication.
We could put some emojis on it too.
What about the order of the bullet points for the 1, 2, 3, 4? I could see having number 3 first. I could see like having to go 3, 4, 2, 1 or something. I don't know, but I like it. I appreciate you taking it on, and I don't need to get into the weeds over how to deliver it. So. thoughts on the order of them?
I like your idea of putting 3 on one.
3, 4, 2, 1?
Oh, you're trying to reorder these
Yeah.
paragraphs? Ah.
Just kind of starting with, hey, we haven't done a tax increase in 12 years. We already made cuts to the special service districts. Tax increases are largely due to keeping up with the market. And then closing with tax increases shown are not necessarily the final amount to represent the maximum. We'll continue to work on it. Hopefully TRT comes through. And then the nice bit about if your income is less than 33.5, you qualify for other.
Thank you, Chris. So 3, 4, 2, 1? Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Because I like that. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Observation.
Yep.
Do you want to say something offset where you say that these funding cuts were made to EMS, et cetera? I mean, some people might not like that, hearing that, but yet there were, in some of these anyway, weren't there other ways of, like through mineral lease or something?
Yeah,
Should there be a statement to make it?
That
It
we're not
almost
just
looks like
leaving
you
them
don't
high
care
and
about
dry.
these.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They've
You
been
could just-
encouraged to explore other funding options.
Well,
Less
you can just say
counties.
county contributions to special service, just the.
I have to call them out by name.
How about that? Yeah, I like that.
Did you hear that, Chris? Are you rewriting?
Strike sentence 2 of point number 4 that will become point number 2.
Well, not the whole sentence, you gotta have, unless you, I mean, we could put in the 430, I don't know, maybe that doesn't matter, I don't know. It's speculative anyway, the actual dollar amount. Although, I mean, in a way, that actual amount has kind of reduced our budget by, because we pulled the TRT and then zeroed out our contributions to store clock.
So just strike sentence 2? Is that, people want a number in there someplace, or?
Yeah, I guess strike the sentence too.
It could read county contributions to special service districts have already been cut by approximately $430,000 in order to reduce the tax increase.
Great. I like the approximate. Other editorial thoughts? Anything else to get this notice ready?
I think that's it.
And you'll have a edited motion somehow for our 2 o'clock meeting.
I guess I'll have to work on it while you're in your other meeting.
And you're taking minutes.
I better do that right now.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. And can you cover this one, Chris?
The dream team.
Yeah. Chris squared.
Yes, we're adjourned. It's 12:40 p.m.
Great googly moogly.
Who wants to, you guys want to have a signature on this?
Evan.
What, at the moment?
No, when it goes out, you're the one that's just
If-
going to have your name
Assuming
on
it's
it.
approved tonight,
You can put my name on it.
you want to really sign it, you can be around tomorrow morning?
Actually, if I could sign it tonight, you're more likely to get it signed quickly.
Yeah, put his address and everything else.
It's all in the public record. Get a handful of phone calls.
Okay.
All right. Oh. Are we just keeping it like this, workshop style?
For the
Yes.
first meeting, I would assume.
Yeah, with so many people coming, I think so.
Okay.
Then we don't
Do
look
we
like
have-
Are we
putting
doing
ourselves above all the
placards
other-
or anything like that? Place names? No? Come on, this is like the most monumental joint meeting
Yeah,
in history of the county. I won't stop you, but I don't have the bandwidth to make it happen.
Don't we have those cards?
Oh, yeah, from the last meeting.
Yeah, we already have them made, so
75%.
Took it from 90-something to 75.
Hi, Tori. Hello there. How are you? You're gonna be okay. Let's see, we need to add in one chair. Well, we're probably on 4 chairs, we need to add in.
I can unspread out my stuff.
How you doing? Very, might try to name her, I guess, since you're here. If you move, just maybe.
I'll just stay where I am. She's gonna wear a- All right.
There you are.
That one wasn't.
4 hours later.
Isn't that the way that the meeting was? Because it was a joint meeting. And district, we only had a separate meeting with council, right?
Oh my God, we did that, August not that much farther to go. We were heading over to Berlin.
It doesn't? That's. Oh, on today's. So, but I think that that's how it was noticed, though, as a separate meeting, right? Oh, okay, so you're just saying we can't approve it because it's not on the agenda? All right.
Just FYI. So those are not going to be on the dais.
Well, all right, I mean, it's approval of the minutes, which is on the agenda, so as long as you're approving minutes, you can do it.
Even though it's not listed out.
Yeah. I think so. Because, I mean, you're saying you're approving the minutes, and so, I mean, it's just sort of like getting ultra detailed to say which minutes, but as long as you're doing what you're saying you're doing, which is approving the minutes, I think we're fine.
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
hey Chris, congratulations on getting your shop up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's nice to have it be weatherproofed, except for the big missing door part.
But you have a roof and walls.
Yeah. Only took over a year.
All right.
Where's Kate Cannon holding her thing? Ruth,
Yeah.
is Kate Cannon holding her meeting at the Grand Center? Okay. And that's at what, 5?
Yeah, it starts at 5, it's an open house. There's a presentation at 5:30 and then repeats at 6:30. All over at 7.
So there's actually 2 presentations that are the same, right?
That's what they told me.
Okay. I hate these chairs.
I'm assuming she is. I know it's just Ron and Karen and I.
Some people have to
We
sit
just have a
for hours now.
Karen is traveling. Yeah. I'll ask her. I can just check to make sure.
I ran to the Hippie Mart and got a jug of coffee and an espresso cookie. So. Anybody need something before I start chugging out of it?
I need something with caffeine in it.
Huh?
That got caffeine.
Yeah. Well, either way, we're splitting. So.
Here, let me.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. It's got some viscosity.
It's almond mocha.
This one, what's up now?
So, yes.
Our attorney's gonna be here, right?
Yeah, she needs to 3% of what she said.
So many meetings.
This one for a moment.
Nope, no, no.
When'd you get that?
The other day.
Wow.
Yeah, for both meetings coming, I'm just gonna find the area where I would use the agenda. So you can just email those to me.
Are we gonna have room for everybody? Yo! What up, Mayor?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I don't know, should we like
I think you're back.
join arms?
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't at our last
Emily, I don't have one for you yet.
No worries, I'll just sit here.
Here,
Yeah.
okay.
I got a marker.
Do we need to sit next to each other, or is that like a thing?
Do you want me to sit with you?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking you.
And,
I'm already set up
and Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
How you doing? Should I try to get out of here?
I mean, how much are you gonna weigh in?
I'm not gonna weigh in at all.
You've got your seat. Back to where you...
And Jasmine?
Yeah, we can all share a gavel, how about that? Wanna touch my gavel? We can slide Jalen over.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, we have been going
Hi,
at it
Chris.
for...
I know, you guys have been,
9
we're just here
a.m.
for this long. Let's get her a chair.
Or here. I'll, Jasmine around. Yeah, okay.
Actually, there's ridiculously large beverage.
Mine, would you like some? No, I just... Baird's. Okay. Maybe right here if you want. That's kind of... Oh, Jasmine, I saved your spot. Come on up. Yeah. Good, how are you? Do we still have a nameplate from the last meeting?
I did, but
Do we have Jasmine's from the last one?
Yeah.
I think I have it.
Oh, you took, that's quite the souvenir. Oh, you got your homemade one
I thought
then.
about making it, and I forgot.
What is this? The joint, okay. I think, yeah. So I think instead of doing like we each talk about it separately, we should let each get a motion. So we can get a motion. You guys will get, yeah, then we'll kind of get into a discussion. What are you feeling about citizen comment? We can do it anyway.
I think we're the only three.
I don't know, so,
Yeah, because I'll let you first.
okay. That's what, that was kind of the question of the hour.
All of us do at our respective meetings.
Yeah.
Even if they're special meetings or, like last minute.
Yeah. Hi, Tori.
I think it's good.
How are you?
Okay.
Jocelyn, we'd like you to push forward, so we just have our own recording of our joint meeting. No, sir, but we'll be down there, but it's on and it's ready, all you do is push record. So, it's on.
I know, isn't this monumental?
We're about to.
The three of us together.
I apologize for not being here for the
Oh, yeah.
John Curtis show, but it seems like it's enough people.
Yeah.
So I saw the email presented that
Ruth did a really good job of presenting structure, and I feel good with that. Do you feel good with that structure?
What we were just saying is we'll probably each get a motion on the table first, and then we can discuss all together.
As opposed to...
Instead of like, the council discusses, the city discusses, the town discusses.
I thought it was kind of weird for the council just to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that, you feel better about that?
Where's your other city?
They'll be here. Ronnie is always on time, and Karen is always 2 minutes late. So,
Are you okay making a motion for us and getting it going?
yeah, but we're gonna wait till I have tomorrow.
Yeah. Terry, you're okay seconding and getting the ball, you're okay seconding and getting the ball rolling?
Do we need our council members to make the motion, probably?
We'll just kind of have like each body.
And you guys don't get
Questionably late, Karen.
Are we 4 or 5 as a quorum? We got Greg.
four.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, right, you count.
I
See, I don't count.
Oh, yeah.
I'm-
See, I'm actually useful.
No, you're not. You're not. It's all wrong. I'm just talking heads of sorts. Okay, so there'll be, so how do you want to do comments? So I think we got the motion figured out, we'll each.
Yes.
Chrissy, we're just talking about the flow of the meeting, and we're talking about citizens.
They're pretty easy. This
Would you like to?
She just did a red line.
Would you like to
No, and I think the laps are good.
we were talking about maybe doing that before the discussion. Do you want to introduce the thing beforehand? Okay, so kind of open the meeting, say, hey, we're here to discuss this resolution. You can walk us through the resolution. Should we make motions then? Or make motions? Okay.
Well, yes,
Technically.
yeah.
He sent us all some.
Okay. So we're gonna open, we're gonna address the agenda issue. There'll be motions made by all 3 bodies. The attorney will talk us through the resolution and any other kind of notes, and then we'll take citizen comment and then board discussion, and then bada boom, bada bang.
Okay.
And we'll have it all wrapped up in less than an hour, ready for our next meeting.
Right.
Sooner than that even. Right?
Do we have?
the capability of doing your timer?
Yes.
We don't need to have myself.
We do.
In my office.
Greg and Tom.
Somebody can.
Your
Maybe
time,
somebody,
citizen comments?
maybe somebody that's
Yes,
not.
I will. Hold on.
He likes.
Oh, he likes that?
Yeah. We're just waiting on the city quorum. Oh. But we can call it to order, I guess, and not actually take action.
Let me just text Karen.
Tell her the chambers are full and we're waiting on her.
I will do that.
What do you want, 3 minutes?
Yes.
I didn't hear from Karen about 20 minutes ago. I finished with Jim back into town, so.
I said, I just asked her what her ETA
Kaylin's in the
was.
room. Mike,
Mary.
Mary.
Karen and Mike are not here. Karen is coming.
Okay.
Does everyone have the revised resolution in front of you?
Thank you.
Okay. It was revised again, so this is like,
This
as
is the
of
revision.
as of this morning, revised revision.
We just need a quorum. I mean, if you want to ask to take action, you have to have a quorum. We only have to have one quorum to get the meeting.
And we can get a motion on the table.
No, you know, the clock across the way says it's only 3 minutes up, so.
So I think we can get going together at least one.
Okay. Let's do it.
So what we don't have a quorum of is the city.
The city. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this monumental joint meeting of this emergency meeting of the Grand County Council, Moab City Council, and Castle Valley Town Council. As far as we can tell in recent history, this is the first time that these bodies have ever joined together to take action. So this is a very significant topic that we are dealing with that really came out of left field. So thank you all to all the council members for addressing it so quickly. It is Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. The time is now 1:04. I'd like to just go around the table quickly and get introductions so that we have it in the public record. I'm Evan Clapper, Chair of the County Council.
Jasmine Duncan, Mayor in Castle Valley. Mary McGann, I am County Council at Large.
Greg Halliday, Grand County Council.
Bob O'Brien, Town Council, Castle Valley.
Harry Holland, Town Council, Castle Valley.
Tori Hill, Town Council, Castle Valley.
Tawny Knutson Boyd, Moab City Council. Ronnie Drossery, Moab City Council.
Terry Morris, Grand County Council.
Jalen Hawks, County Council.
Emily Niehaus, Moab City Mayor.
Thank you all. We have one agenda item, one action item on the agenda for today. It is approving a proposed joint resolution opposing National Park Service Directive dated September 24th, 2019, allowing off-road vehicles, ATV, UTV, OHVs, in national parks in the Southeast Utah group. I would entertain a motion. Jaylyn.
I move. I don't move for all three, though, do I?
So you go for us.
I move on behalf of Grand County Council to approve a joint resolution opposing National Park Service Directive dated September 24th, 2019, allowing off-road vehicles, ATVs, UTVs, and OHVs in national parks and monuments in the Southeast Utah group, and authorize the chair to sign associated documents.
Second.
Motion made by Jaylyn Hawks, seconded by Terry Morris. All county council members in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I have a suggestion,
Please.
just because this is not.
Point of order we were going to discuss.
Okay. We will discuss shortly. But I want to give an opportunity to get the motion on the table from all the bodies. Is that okay?
Okay, and
Thank you.
then we'll discuss.
Do you want to call yours?
Was that a motion to approve?
Not to oppose. To
Or sorry.
approve a joint resolution opposing.
So you just called for a vote without deliberation.
Oh, thank you. Point of order. Discussion. Pause. City.
I just want to say thank you to all of us for coming together and attempting to have good order as we do this joint business. So,
We need to have the minutes reflect that Karen is correct.
I know, yeah. So, but before I do that, is everyone clear with what just happened?
The county
You have
had a motion with a second, and now that motion is open for discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because this is just a suggestion, is because the audience does not have this in front of them, and the people on YouTube, and it's been recently changed, I would recommend you read it. We're all going to get on and
Thank you. We will address that shortly.
Okay.
So now I would entertain a motion from the city, and I want to reflect that Karen Guzman-Newton, City Council member, is now in attendance for this meeting.
I would entertain a joint resolution opposing National Park Service Directive dated September 24th, 2019, allowing off-road vehicles, ATV, UTV, OHVs in national parks and monuments in the Southeast Utah group.
Thank you, Tony.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ronnie. And we'll remain open for discussion.
Thank you.
And now I would also entertain a motion.
I would motion that we approve a joint resolution opposing the National Park Service Directive dated September 14th, 2019, allowing off-road vehicles, ATV, UTVs, OHVs in national parks and monuments in the Southeast Utah group.
Second.
Motion by Tori Hill and seconded by Bob O'Brien.
Shall we read the resolution?
It's a long resolution. It did go out publicly in our agenda, so I'd recommend we just read the red line edits.
I agree.
Okay.
The first red line edit is a whereas on the second page. Whereas motorized recreation is a critical component of the economy of Southeast Utah and is essential that the experiences provided on our public lands meet the expectations of our motorized and non-motorized visitors. You want to do the next one?
Sure. The second, after that, I'll just read the full language. Whereas the Moab Field Office of the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, encompasses 1.8 million acres of canyon country with nearly 4,000 linear miles of roads and trails open to off-road vehicles, including ATV, UTV, OHVs, which roads and trails provide high-quality experiences for motorized recreation of all types.
And then the last change that was made was 3, whereas is past that one. And it reads, whereas various user groups have met over many years and have successfully implemented a user group management plan that works for all recreational uses, including OHV, ATV, and UTVs, which planning efforts support the region's tourism, economy, and tax base.
Should we read the therefores? Or? Sure, I'll read a therefore.
Okay.
So after our 3 pages of whereases, it concludes with, now therefore it is resolved that the town of Castle Valley, city of Moab, and Grand County, Utah oppose allowing ATVs, UTVs, OHVs to travel roads in the national parks and monuments located in the Southeast Utah group without environmental study and public comment as required by the Act, NEPA, and NPS management policies.
It is further resolved that the town of Castle Valley, city of Moab, and Grand County, Utah also oppose allowing ATV, UTV, OHVs to travel roads in the national parks and monuments located in the Southeast Utah group until existing congestion and visitor experience degradations are addressed, and
It is further resolved that the town of Castle Valley, city of Moab, and Grand County, Utah also oppose allowing UTV, ATV, OHVs to travel roads in the national parks and monuments located in the Southeast Utah group because such use is incompatible with resource and wildlife protection.
Is there any other highlights from,
No, but I will say we heard from our recreation communities, and the edits that were just discussed were an appreciation of our motorized community. This is not a resolution opposing motorized uses. It is a resolution opposing off-road vehicles in the national parks and monuments.
with that, we would like to give the opportunity for some citizen comment. This is a very well-attended meeting. With that in mind, we've heard a lot of comments that have come in via email and word on the street. And I would like to encourage folks to avoid repeating what's already been said. So because we do have a limited time on this time-sensitive issue, we'd like to limit comments to 3 minutes. And once again, just try not to repeat too much. If you would like to make a comment, please just make your way to the corner of the table, introduce yourself, and speak into the microphone for the live streaming online. Any takers?
I'm Judy Powers, and I'd really like you guys to support this resolution. I think it's important.
Thank you.
I hate public speaking. I'm Kylie Miller, and I support this resolution, and I also ask the councils to join forces and try to get them off of our streets.
Going once?
address one issue, and that was that this is sort of brought up as a discrimination issue on the part of some motorized recreation people. And it's really not discrimination because motor vehicles can be regulated and regulated as perceived needed. Discrimination happens against people, and everyone is welcome in the parks as long as they have a pass or a permit. It's not a discriminatory sort of thing. So, thank you.
Please share your name.
Oh, Wayne Hoskison.
Thanks.
My name is Crystal Music, and I definitely support this resolution, and I'm happy that everybody joined forces and that this meeting happened on short notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Michael Grindstaff. I support the vote, and I think that if we allow them in the park, it will fundamentally alter the experience of, I think, all of the visitors to the backcountry roads in our parks here. And we're so lucky to have those here in our parks. Most parks do not have these kind of dirt access roads, so I think we should do it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lee Singleton, L-E-I-G-H, and I just want to say thank you so much. You have the support of so many people in the community, myself included, and your efforts are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
My name is Dave Montgomery, and I want to thank the three bodies here for coming together on such quick notice and moving quickly on this issue. I absolutely support you guys to this particular resolution.
Thank you.
Can I be the home seat?
Please.
Hello, my name's Kent. Green, I run a local business here in Moab. Obviously, you know what I do run. It's not that I don't support what you're doing, but we need to sit back and take a look about a lot of different things. It is a industry that has come to Moab. Yes, there needs to be some regulation, but for those who want to keep them off the street, that's not going to happen. There's laws in place to keep that. So there is, I just don't support what you're doing here. I think that we need to sit back and take a look and ask everybody in Moab, not just a few. And for this meeting to be done in a short notice, I think you ought to give the OHV community an opportunity also to voice their opinion. You know, I just happened to catch wind of this. In fact, I come off of Hell's Rebellion just a few minutes ago, just because I heard about it. I do appreciate the work that you do. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate what you do, but I just don't support what you're doing here. I think that you're not speaking for all Moab residents, only a few. And so, but there are some solutions we can come up with. Obviously, our parks are national treasures, and I love them just as much as everybody else does. But there is a discrimination issue. So that's something you're going to have to fight uphill all the way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Howdy, my name's Merrick Goals. I've been guiding in Canyons National Park for 12 years, backcountry mountain bike tours. I am also a motorsport enthusiast, but the Park Service already is underfunded, understaffed into protecting this area with the visitors they already have, and that's what just overwhelmed them, and I feel that some areas need to be quieter and more protected, and there's already so much that we can take our motorsports to around the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. If you're standing in the hallway, there are still some open seats if you feel like having a seat.
Hi, my name is Brian Martinez, and I feel that I'm a steward of Canyonlands and Arches National Park. I spend a lot of time in the backcountry and in the front country. I feel that at this current time, there's never been more access available for all people. In fact, that's what I do, is take people out into the backcountry of Canyonlands and Arches. So that access is already there, and I think that this, the resolution that you guys are opposing right now, or the opposition of this bill is good. I mean, there's just never been a time where this use is so against what the parks, what people come to enjoy. So, anyways, thanks.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Any discussion from the councils?
I'm not a member of the council, but I have been in contact with Councilmember Jones today. He is not able to be here. He has had time to review the joint resolution, and he wanted to make sure that I voiced his support in passing it and supporting the resolution as the amendments and as it is drafted.
You know, one thing that I would like to highlight is in the resolution, it really does call out a lot about the process that this came down from, and the fact that it didn't have a lot of opportunity for citizen comment or reaching out to folks that it would really affect. And so I think that that's something that we have issues with as a councils, and so it's not. So I also would like to echo that I think any changes should have a bigger review and study process, and that's one of the issues that I have with this kind of quick change, because it is a change, and so any kind of adjustment to the status quo really should be reviewed quite well. And so I would like to echo that citizen comment. The parks are a special place, and they are highly regulated, and I think that, you know, just like they don't allow hang gliders, you're not even allowed to fly a kite in the national park because of the effects that that would have on other user experiences. And so I think that, you know, to make changes that would affect other user experiences this drastically without looking at things like flying kites or hang gliding or base jumping or all the other things that are discriminated against, that it's kind of a narrow view here and really should be part of a much larger process.
That was my biggest issue with this as well, that it didn't go through process.
So I'd like to share some thoughts. Real quick. So I think I was the only one of us that did not attend the Representative John Curtis's visit, but I watched online, and he was very clear that if we came together as a community with a joint resolution to address this recent decision, that that would be the tool that he needed to be able to advocate for our community. I want to say that I'm very grateful that we have a representative that's willing to come and have joint meetings with us and host town halls to listen to our community. Clearly, our community, there are folks that are in favor of this and folks that are not in favor of this. But we are here today to vote as a unified group of bodies with our best intention to represent what we think that the majority of our community, how the majority of our community feels. And I just personally am in favor of this resolution. And I do recognize that our state law that was the reasoning for why this decision was made needs to be looked at, and maybe by this body again, or this group of bodies, all our bodies coming together. And I just want to reiterate again how grateful I am to have Representative John Curtis asking for us to be here today to make this decision in concert with one another.
I've watched city, county government for a long time, and I am so excited to see this movement towards the different legislative bodies getting together, working together, solving problems together. And I think this is an example of a brand new day that is positive, and I applaud everybody for being here. I'm very excited that the three councils came together.
Please, if you come to the mic and introduce yourself and voice your question.
My name is Sandy Hinchman. I've been out of town for a couple of weeks, so I hope this question isn't too ignorant. I'm wondering what is happening in San Juan County, and whether public opinion there is being rallied in any way, whether the commission is making any sort of effort, one way or the other, in regard to this decision.
I would say that I personally haven't had direct interaction with San Juan County commissioners regarding this. We have had some outreach to some other gateway communities around Springdale and communities that are being affected by this. But because of the timeline that this kind of came into our lap and our response, we really wanted to focus things in our community and have our community voice. And Grand County, the city, the town, would really like to be leaders in this effort. And hopefully our resolution is something that other folks can pick up on. But it's really going to be up to them to make those decisions in their communities. And I don't know if anyone has other...
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Evan. Thanks for raising that. And I wanted to thank my colleagues because I know several of you guys have been reaching out to other gateway communities, Springdale especially, and looking for contacts kind of in the Kanab and Torrey area. And I would just encourage, I'm awful told that while it's important to hear from other elected leaders, people in other counties, I mean, they definitely want to hear from their residents. If you happen to live in Spanish Valley or another part of San Juan County, by all means, I would encourage you to contact your commission representatives and elected officials higher up too. And just along that note, just as a public outreach message from one council member to other residents, it is my understanding that there's still value to anybody who hasn't, written a letter with feelings about this change, to write people at the state and federal and NPS and Department of Interior levels. And I was just going to try and do a little education on behalf of one of our representatives who asked me to explain that when you write your federal representatives, I know I've often sat there and thought, why can't I just CC these people? They make it impossible to find their email address. Instead, I have to go into this irritating little form and I got to paste my message in, and I don't find it very efficient. But at any rate, it was explained to me, at least at the federal level with some of our representatives and senators, that that's kind of the only way they have to sort through masses of emails. So if you happen to contact one of us or someone else for a list of people you might want to write, just understand that that's why when you get to some of these addresses, it's going to tell you to go to their website and enter your message. And that's just an efficiency thing on their end. So again, I just wanted to thank all of you for the collaboration on this.
Any other discussion? Should I start?
Sure.
Grand County Council, there's a motion made by J. Lynn Hawk, seconded by Terry Morse. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Moab City Council, there was a motion by Tawny and seconded by Ronnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Town of Castle Valley, we have a motion by Tori Hill, seconded by Bob O'Brien. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Any future considerations while we're all together? Future considerations?
Promoting the NPS meeting tonight.
Oh, yes, there will be. Go ahead.
I don't know as much about it as I should.
I've seen conflicting times, so I was going to see if anybody, because I've seen 5 PM and I've seen 5:30 at the Grand Center.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 to 7 at the Grand Center, and I do believe they'll be giving an overview at 5:30 and 6:30 if you happen to just step in and out, but to discuss traffic congestion, but also visitor experience, kind of where they're at now, but it's a MPS meeting.
So this is a meeting hosted by the Park Service at the Grand Center tonight from 5 to 7:30. 7.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
You should go to the mic.
Or does somebody want to echo that? Or
There will be Intermountain Regional, the Intermountain Region staff.
And somebody there specifically to talk about OHV.
All right. That's news to me.
But originally that, it was set up just to be talking about the reservation and the congestion system. Yes. Gotcha.
So if that didn't make it onto a mic, Joette Langanese is just adding there will be someone at tonight's meeting to discuss the OHV issue in case there are questions, but that's not the main focus of the meeting.
Will there be somebody from this table attending with the signed joint resolution in hand to present tonight?
I would be honored to deliver that resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan.
Any other future considerations?
It will also give him motivation to move the council meeting along
Yep.
quickly.
Gotta go. See you guys.
Do you have that?
We have a council meeting right after this.
We're starting our council meeting at 2 o'clock so that we can get to this important community meeting hosted by the Park Service.
I want to add just one final consideration
Please.
too. I do think that we need to, as a community, discuss, as a resort community, discuss the law, the Utah law that allows ATVs, UTVs, OHVs on the road. I think that in the resolution, it's very clear that we do not want to eliminate that user group from recreating in our community, but there's been a public outcry regarding the noise, and that we hopefully can come together with suggested amendments to that law that could perhaps look at curfew and designated routes. And so I just encourage us to move forward with that conversation and use this momentum. And I want to echo what Kent shared, that we include the tour operators in the conversation, because I know they have a thing or two to say about that. So, so that we are including all voices in that conversation about what that amendment could look like. It's just for future consideration. There are no meetings currently scheduled, but Kent, you and others, your voice is important in this conversation, especially as we're talking about curfew and designated routes. To hear from you what your interests are and coming to a compromise in our community, I think would be a really beautiful thing for us to try to accomplish together.
Can I just add one thing on here?
Okay?
Yes, we are.
I want to make it perfectly clear that I am not a rental company. I'm a tour company owner, so don't think I rent machines out because they go out. My machines are supervised. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Thanks for that.
May I add to that, Emily? I think that it might even pay to go a little bit higher than that and see if we can't get these things just made quieter. We have technology now.
Should we do a symbolic signing?
Should we adjourn and then sign?
I don't know.
No, let's sign now. Let's sign now.
Look at that.
So everybody's got to sign
Oh,
it
and
3
fancy
times.
pens. Nice.
Thank you, Ruth.
Look at this.
Huge shout out. What's my resolution number?
It's some pictures.
You can get that later.
Where's my name? Look at that.
What's
So I don't, I'm assuming that our resolutions.
Here, I'll trade
Oh, we're going to sign it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Nice and quick. Nobody wants to amend the wildlife.
Should we each hold one up?
Sure.
But you know,
Where's the newspaper?
There's one.
Just hold this up.
Yeah, maybe they want wildlife.
3, 2, 1.
There they go.
All right.
For a motion to adjourn.
With that, we have achieved what
Do you want to come back?
we have
Take a
fulfilled
picture.
all our
She wants her picture.
items on the agenda, and I would adjourn this meeting due to
Motion.
Robert's rule.
You don't
No,
have to,
we've
no.
done it all. It's adjourned at 1:34.
Right? You don't have to have a motion to adjourn. Once your business is done, you can adjourn. Once the business is done. It's just, Chris will.
We always did it, and then we read Robert's rules and found we didn't have to.
Whose is
It's
this?
just, it's courtesy.
Whose is this?
I don't know. That's,
Here, we gotta get Chris in before we get too far. Do you want Chris to sign them, or are you gonna send them?
Very good. Well worth doing.
Is Thank you. Is Jocelyn here? Jocelyn here? Okay. No, we were doing these signatures, I was just gonna grab it. Sorry, do you want to sign? Got a spot for you.
thanks, ladies.
And Tori Hill went out.
What's that?
Tori Hill.
Not yet.
There is your card.
Thank you.
I found out about it at the Arches idea celebrated, and I was right, and Emily was at the so yeah. Yeah, and there was definitely. Yeah, just saying that, I was like, right on. State code that we. Well, that's why I think this is like. That's how I
We didn't get Chris.
Yeah, thanks.
Subject to FOIA, I got it. Do you know where I got it? Well, they have,
ours? Yes. And so you don't deliver the original. Take a copy, get a color copy and give it to them. I'm going to come up with my own. I'm going to be in the meeting. I think what we should do is just have our own number and then we can accept it.
Well, yeah, but I didn't. Yeah, and you're adding it to tonight.
If I had time, I would go number it right now, but it's like 15 minutes until the meeting.
Do I have this?
They don't know how to do that.
The version? I don't know. Nothing about it.
I don't know either.
Probably not.
All right, I'll go look and see what the next number is and come right back.
Or if you want to email it to me, I can put that on.
Does it matter to you what number? I mean, it should.
I have our number on
So, I think it's sufficient to just give them a copy of one, right? We don't need to give them a copy of all three. No, I'll go get my own, but Evan can just give them a copy of ours.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I don't think we have to give them any more.
That works for me. It's signed by the three bodies.
No, she's not here.
Thank you, friends. Just bring it down. I'll bring it down. Do whatever you're freaking on. All right, wow. I know it is. Yeah, it's really fun. And I do think that's.
Oh, great googly moogly. Making moves. You know, kind of like this. Should we change it for next year? What?
Thank you. This is Lori.
I will answer to all of you.
Well, I can tell that Laura knew your name. I was like,
Oh my God, so I went to Milton and I was like, I am the best dressed person I have probably ever. And then I saw the emergency meeting. I was like, oh, I have everyone. So I did tell everyone. Well, I know, but like first day. Probably.
I haven't showered in a while. Yeah, I can't wear this bike.
But you know what I have to say, that the traditional, you guys are shooting it. Got it, like, oh, seriously. I don't know. Oh, I know, yeah.
Okay, welcome.
Launch it right out of the gate. Doing the marathon. Calling for the vote.
Yeah, I saw.
That was good. Yeah. It's all right. Yeah, that was fast. I'm sorry we voted for that.
Yeah, it was very nice to meet you. I will say, yeah. I saw it.
I don't think I've been a councilman. I said like, oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
I'm very friendly with that Johnson.
Yeah. What you can blame part of this is that it's fall. You should tell her that. Yeah. She inspired me.
We owe you an apology.
For what?
Well, when you did the ribbon cutting at USU, you were not included in the photo, and I didn't catch it at the time, but.
It's okay, you guys had two mayors. Why do you need a councilman?
Well, that's bullshit, and it's inexcusable, and I'll make a point of it at our next council meeting,
Hey, as
so.
long as you guys cover twice the,
I apologize, Evan. I was in the background, I wasn't even really paying attention, and.
Okay, next time you want to.
No, a few days later. Yeah, so, yeah,
There you go.
I apologize. So,
Okay.
we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Let's go Photoshop.
I'll make a point of it.
I'm
at my next
joking.
Yeah,
meeting.
that's great.
I'm gonna go this next. All right, yes, to me. What you got there, chocolate milk?
Yeah. Stoke.
Gotta be more. Reading over into your section.
Oh, I was like, I got a little nervous. I saw 2 weeks Park Service. I had 1,000. I spent all week going through them, but I'll be able to meet with them. So I do appreciate it for being here. And if you need me to talk to anyone, how to do it. Make sure.
I don't know about planning commission. I mean, I understand right now there is a passive and then upon request. So it's the request. Yeah. I probably, so that's, planning commission is also every 2 weeks. Yeah. Opposite every 2 weeks. So. Well, no, it's the same week. It's just on we do Tuesday, maybe Thursday, 2 days later. Oh, that might work. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. Is it probably more different ways? I mean, it depends on how much. Yeah. I know there was a time.
All right.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got to sign the Terry, are you sure you can't stay on the council? You're still paying taxes on your house. Yeah. I figure as long as you're paying taxes there, you're a member of that district.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be something to talk about, wouldn't it? Do it until somebody challenges it. Yeah. Then it would be, it's always easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Yeah, that's what they say.
Up there, Greg.
Then you get a chance, you turn the little hair on,
Yeah.
all those people excited. That's my life. Eat everything up.
So Ruth, I sent in a revised agenda summary motion thing for the tax thing.
Yeah.
For stamp on there. Can you print that up for everybody?
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. All right, well, thanks.
Hey, Bill. Yes, sir. I forgot to tell you, people up at Thompson wanted to thank you for the work you did up there. On Nutter Lane.